I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Ms. Ford, will you call the roll?
Chairman Wingate.
Here.
Vice Chairman McClendon.
Here.
Mrs. Hill. Here. Mrs. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Perez.
Here.
Mrs. Robinson. Mr. Smith.
Yes, here.
Mrs. Thurman.
Here.
Superintendent Johnson.
Here.
All right, so I have the following request to amend the agenda. Under consent would be item Roman numeral 8D1 under bids and contracts. It would be to remove item 1B, contract school psychologist 2122. Then also under item Roman numeral 9, board matters, please add one, acceptance of Dr. Johnson's resignation, and number 2, appointment of interim director. Also, request to add the following speakers in our delegations section: Angela Favaloro, thank you, Esther Hart, John Baker, and Ms. Stephanie Hinton. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mrs. Ford.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. McClendon.
Yes.
Mr. Perez.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson. Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Next, we'll have our meditation and pledge to the flag by Mr. Greg Wilkie, principal of Eastside Elementary. Mr. Wilkie.
Dr. Johnson, Chairman Wingate, members of the board. My name is Greg Wilkie. I'm principal of Eastside Elementary School. It is my pleasure to be here tonight to lead us in the pledge and meditation. Would you all please stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before I begin, I think I need to make a comment about Dr. Johnson's recent announcement and let him know that you will be missed and your inspiration has been felt by many people in this community and the school system. So, sir, thank you for your service. It was a pleasure to work for you. All right, before I begin, you may see I have a stool in my hand, and the stool is a part of my meditation tonight. So I'm going to read a little reflection I wrote recently about what I learned during the pandemic. And the stool here is what prompted me to write this piece. This past year, I spent a lot of time on that stool. It began as nothing more than me in the hallway monitoring multiple classrooms to provide teachers a lunch break, duty-free lunch. So I would sit on the hall on this stool and I would watch classrooms. But as I sat there, I began to notice the changes happening in the school. Fear began to replace enthusiasm. Isolation began to consume collaboration. Facial coverings masked smiles and muffled laughter. People vanished behind walls and behind dividers. Trust eroded. Teams deteriorated. Confidence disappeared. I remember how I felt on this stool, day in and day out. I lost faith in myself. I gave away a lot of my power and a lot of my influence as I struggled to survive. I was lost most of the time, and I absolutely hated it. As a school leader, the responsibility to maintain order fell on me. The decisions I had to make suddenly affected a lot more than just school operations. Now I had to make choices that truly were critical in nature. I carried the safety and the well-being of hundreds of people on my shoulders every day. The weight was enormous, and it almost crushed me. But it didn't. I'm up now, off this stool. I'm standing strong while staring at a fresh new horizon. I'm very optimistic, guardedly, as I plan for a brand new school year. But I'm taking a much different approach. I have no desire to return to normal, because normal is not always what's best for children or adults. Normal is too often confused with comfortable or convenient. I'm embracing those changes that came with the pandemic. I learned way too much. We all learned too much to forget it. I'm moving the school forward with a renewed sense of relationships. What was destroyed can and will be rebuilt with time, effort, and commitment. I will seek more advice. I fully understand that no one has all the answers. I need help, and that's okay. I will listen more intently. Everyone's voice matters. I will speak softly, but with conviction, because my tone affects the entire school. I will model my expectations. I will take back my power by sharing the responsibility of my leadership. If I truly want a collaborative climate of balanced leadership, it has to start with me. I'll be more patient. I'll be more empathetic. I will not be quick to judge. Sometimes we learn and grow the most when we least expect it. When I began sitting in the hall on this stool just to do lunch duty, I had no idea the journey I was going to take as a leader and as a human being. I'm keeping this stool. I pray we never forget what we just learned. Thank you.
All right, that brings us to our delegations portion of our meeting. First up here will be Taylor Lyons. And before you all come, if you would give your attention to Mr. McClennan.
Thank you. This will be for all of our speakers tonight. Thank you for your interest in addressing the Hamilton County Board of Education. During your presentation, please address the board as a whole, not individual board members or administrators. Also, please do not present complaints or concerns you have about an individual employee of the school system. If you wish to voice those complaints and concerns, you should contact the central office and ask for a meeting with the superintendent, since the superintendent is responsible for individual employees. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. I will tell you when you have 1 minute left by raising a piece of paper, and you may begin when you're ready. We will start with Ms. Taylor Lyons.
I don't know what I'm going to talk about now. I had so many complaints. I'm kidding. Members of the board, Dr. Johnson, thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is Taylor Lyons. I'm here representing the Chattanooga Moms for Social Justice. We hoped to be here last year to give you a progress report on this project, but COVID threw those plans out the window, so I'm excited to be here this evening to give you an update on the classroom library project, which we began back in the fall of 2018. So to give you just a little bit of background on the project, throughout our organization's existence, we've had the opportunity and privilege to work in a number of schools throughout our county, most of which our own children do not even attend, and that has given us a unique perspective into areas such as resource distribution, facility disparities, as well as given us the opportunity to get to know dozens and dozens of our county's amazing teachers and school administration and to assess some of their needs. One of those needs that we heard is that teachers, often new teachers, were having difficulty stocking their classroom libraries. Now, as many of you know, classroom libraries have become an integral part of literacy education because it gives kids access to reading materials every day of the week, as opposed to the one day a week they visit their school's main library. So you can imagine if a teacher is having to buy their own books, it can become very burdensome. So MSJ set a goal to put a classroom library into every school in what was then known as the Opportunity Zone. We did just that and then some. I'm very proud to share that we have installed 15 classroom libraries in schools throughout Hamilton County, from elementary schools to high schools. We have 6 more to complete this fall, and we will continue this project so long as we have the resources to do so. We crowdsourced and paid out of our own pockets for the first few libraries, and then we were very fortunate to secure a $20,000 grant from the Osborne Foundation, which allowed us to go wild with book purchasing. In addition to the thousands of books that Moms for Social Justice was able to provide Hamilton County students, we also would come into the classroom over the weekend, with the teacher's permission, might I add. We would paint the walls, bring in new bookshelves, comfortable chairs, comfortable rugs, soft lighting, etc. We wanted the kids to not only be excited about their new books, we wanted them to have a comfortable and inviting place to read those books. Now, listen, we know there are many organizations, wonderful organizations in our community who give books to our students. We've had the pleasure of working with many of them. And trust me, if word gets out that you're working on a project that involves acquiring books, you will have no shortage of people calling you up, offering their used books in donation, which is very kind, but we politely declined, and I'll tell you why. What was important to us and what we did was work with literacy advocates and experts in our community to finely tune and curate a diverse and inclusive reading list according to student population and grade level. You see, it's not enough that our kids know how to read. Our kids need to love to read. And we learn to love to read when we see ourselves and our lives' experiences reflected in the pages that we read. We know that representation matters. So together with our partners, we put together a beautifully diverse array of books with protagonists of color, authors of color, women-led, Spanish titles, LGBTQ titles, you name it. We wanted all of our kids to feel seen and heard with their reading choices. Now, we know that there is a national conversation going on in school board meetings throughout the country, based on misunderstanding and, quite frankly, fear. Fear of what it means to honestly discuss and look at the ugliest parts of our national story and how it has deeply affected the lives of so many. But we know that fear is not necessary because we know that our kids are fantastically capable of critical thinking. They are capable of reading challenging books that challenge their perspective and ask them to think about hard questions. Further, we trust our teachers to facilitate healthy, nuanced conversations around tough subjects. If you will allow me to end on a quote by up-and-coming American writer Dante Stewart, "Literacy and liberation go hand in hand." We know this. The world we desire to live in is directly connected to the worlds we have the ability to explore. Our children's worlds do not need to become smaller. They need to become bigger. MSJ will continue our commitment to making our kids' worlds bigger. And on a personal note, Dr. Johnson, may I say our organization is heartbroken to hear about your resignation. Your loss will be deeply felt, and we thank you for your service to our children. Thank you.
Scarlett Valdez.
Hello. Oh, this might be a little bit too high for me. Sorry. Oh, it's awkward. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Scarlett Valdez. I wanted to start off by letting you all know that I'm a Mexican-American, a very proud Mexican-American from 2 very hard-working parents that did everything under the sun to give my sisters and I every single opportunity that we've had. I'm brand new to Chattanooga. My family and I are brand new. We moved here 2 months ago. And let me just tell you all, Chattanooga's culture has been such a breath of fresh air. Everyone's so nice here. People hold doors for you. They say hi to you. They have conversations with you. They don't even know who you are. And you're like, oh, okay, hello. So, yeah, you got to be ready for a long conversation here in Chattanooga is what I noticed. Yeah, but I do want to tell you where I am from because I think that's a very important part of why I'm here. So I come from a place where having a different opinion is dangerous, and in fact, it can cost someone their livelihood. I come from a place where having a relationship with Jesus Christ is not welcome, and it can get you persecuted. I also come from a place where skin color dictates one's abilities. I come from a place that teaches children that there is a superior race and segregation is unfortunately welcome. I come from a place where children are taught to hate their bodies. I come from a place where children are taught that friends come in all ages, and those friends may express themselves physically, and that's okay. I come from a place where public schools are not safe for our children, unfortunately. Our children are taught to segregate themselves by skin color and ideology. This is done under the guise of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Sometimes it's called social emotional learning, sometimes it's called racial justice, and sometimes it can also be called social justice. I've found that the name evolves pretty quickly and pretty often, so sometimes it's a little bit hard to keep up with. I come here today to respectfully warn parents that this ideology does not work. It's actually pretty harmful. So you may wonder where I'm from. I'm not from Cuba. I'm not from Venezuela. I'm not even from Mexico. I'm actually from Washington State. I come from a small town in Bellingham, Washington, where our culture has been hijacked by political extremists. It's very sad that the victims of this ideology are our children and people of color, if that's how you like to address people. I ask parents and school board members to reject this extreme ideology and to not allow it to plague our children's minds and our children's schools. You as public servants have a duty to the parents and children of Chattanooga, so please, I ask that you take it seriously. Not that you're not, but please do take it seriously. Our Lord and Savior says that anything done in darkness will come to light, and the parents will always be here to hold you accountable. And I would also like to end in a quote from a musical extraordinaire by the name of Ice Cube. Better check yourself before you wreck yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Ashley Kay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me speak tonight. I would like to start by saying I am not speaking tonight out of fear, but I am speaking out of a very concerned place for the children who are the future of our country. I am not a parent or an educator, but I am a member of the community who realizes the importance of speaking up about the disaster that is happening in our education system, because the children are our future, and currently, in my opinion, that future is not looking too bright. I want to reference, I was here for the May Board of Education meeting in this room, and that was the one about the mask mandates. That one got pretty exciting. There was a member of this board, I'm not going to call names because I know I can't do that, but that stated, I haven't seen you guys here before this, and I'm not going to see you guys after that. And so that statement is what I'm responding to tonight in regards to, you're right, you hadn't seen us previously. But I want everyone to know that that has changed, because we, the people, for years have been asleep. We wrongly thought we can trust you guys to have the best interests of our children. And I know we were wrong. It's clear that we were wrong. And that's very upsetting to me as someone who moved here from California to get away from that ideology that only allows one side to have an opinion in the public realm. So I want to serve notice tonight that we were wrong. We're not asleep anymore. Sorry, I'm in my notes here. In regards to the mask that we were here for the protest, there was also a comment made that night where someone on this board said they were afraid to unmask our children because the adult teachers may be too scared to show up to class. Really? I want to address by saying it is not up to our children to alleviate the fears of the teachers. Burden is not placed on our children. Our children come to school to learn and to be educated. I don't know where things got confused, but that is not how it works. The children are our future, and we need to start acting and teaching like it is. Patriotism has been taken out of schools and replaced with socialist and communist ideologies. You are confusing our children by pushing transgender ideology onto them, even though they are too young to even understand what that means. Why do we have to sexualize our children? It's very disturbing to me. We now have children who are pressured to question their God-given gender. And by the way, there are only 2 genders, according to the science. You are pushing abortion and Planned Parenthood on our children and telling them it is okay to murder innocent babies in the womb for women's health. This is only a drop in the bucket of what I feel is satanic ideology that you have been brainwashing our children with while we were asleep. But I'm here to tell you again tonight, we're not asleep anymore. I understand why you thought you wouldn't see us anymore after the mask mandates were lifted, because you're used to business as usual. You're used to us being busy with our lives while you quietly indoctrinate our children with your, in my opinion, trash. That all changes here and now. If parents want to teach this ideology to the children, how about teach it at home? Leave our children out of it. Why does the entire education system have to cater to your ideology and your political views? How about we get back to teaching basic education, such as math, English, spelling? And if I might add, we should keep our personal political beliefs from both sides of the aisle out of the classroom and let our children learn what they're here to learn, and that's get a great education. We the people are no longer going to sit back quietly and let you destroy our children with your anti-American and anti-God indoctrination. We are paying attention. We are watching every single move you make, just in case no one on this board realizes we pay your salaries, we pay for everything in this building. Anything we spend our money on that is no longer working in our best interest must go. So to anyone who's sitting here not acting in the best interest of our children, enjoy the seat while you have it, because you will not be sitting in it much longer. To the students, to the parents, educators, and patients and patriots around the country fighting the good fight to secure a future where our children can thrive and not go through life thinking of themselves as a victim to society because of the color of their skin or because they don't identify a certain sexual way, I want to encourage you, keep fighting and showing up. We are the majority. We will never back down. We will never surrender. The children are our future, and we will make our education system great again. Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Hill.
First, I'd like to say thank you so much to the Moms for Social Justice for your long-term commitment to the students of Hamilton County Schools and spending time since 2018 on a project that is important and not necessarily fancy, but that really matters to kids, and I appreciate that. Ms. Valdez and Ms. Kay, I don't know what school in Hamilton County you've been in where you have heard our teachers teaching anti-American, anti-God, kill unborn babies, indoctrination. As far as I know, that's not happening in a single school in Hamilton County Schools. I don't know what community you are talking about, and you're able to stand at that mic and say what you want for 5 minutes, but I do think it's important for us here to rebut your points and say what you have said is untrue. You may feel concern, but what you have said is happening in our schools is not happening in our schools. And I would ask you to stick around, because what this board really likes to focus our work on is academics and student success. We have a very detailed strategic plan that has 5 key areas of interest. That includes improving student performance, making sure we have great teachers and leaders in every single school, ensuring that our community is fully involved with that process, making sure that we have efficient and effective operations. These are things that we focus on day in and day out. This is not a sexy place to sit. This is not a place where any one of us got up here and said, we want to do this for the power. We want to do this for our children. And I'm glad that you care about your children and your friends' children, I guess. So I invite you, please, stick around and hear our year in review. Because while people have been talking about a whole bunch of junk that they say is happening in America, which I would argue, I don't know how much that's happening in America because it's not happening in Hamilton County schools. While people have been talking about just hype, we've been talking about getting our kids an education. And we've been talking about how we keep them safe, and we work toward very, very difficult academic goals. Because you're right, you are right. The people of Hamilton County have been asleep for a long, long time. And when Dr. Johnson joined our school system 4 years ago, we woke up. We woke up and we started getting down to basics. And Dr. Johnson has shared with us the concept of expecting excellence. And if you turn around and you look at those banners behind you, you will see 5 after 5 after 5 after 5. It does not mean we are perfect. It means that we are the fastest improving school district in the state of Tennessee. And that is no small thing. And that is not because of an anti-Christian, anti-God, anti-American, no patriotic, let's kill babies mantra. That is not happening in our schools because we're too busy doing this. So I welcome all of you to come up, but I will not sit here and allow blatant misinformation to be shared repeatedly from this microphone without saying something, and I have a feeling my colleagues will no longer do it either.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yeah, I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Jenny.
Fallon Clark.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Just wanted to start out by saying thank you for the opportunity. My name is Fallon Clark, and I am representing Blake's, Tennessee. I'm just going to hop right in. So, CRT, for such a complex, controversial topic, I have a very simple question. Why? What is the purpose? What does it solve? What does it actually teach? Imagine two childhood friends, Jenny and Sharon. They've been friends since they were 2 years old, sharing everything, birthdays, sleepovers, and a number of firsts. They grow up and enter the public school system where CRT is being taught. Jenny is reminded she's white and learns about the atrocities committed to maintain her white privilege. And Sharon is reminded she's black and every shortcoming and challenge she faces is because of Jenny's white privilege. Tensions rise, hostility creeps in, and just like that, the friendship is over. Now, perhaps my example is a little extreme, but not too far-fetched. It actually sounds familiar. Children don't see race until you and I show it to them. So I can tell you what CRT teaches. Critical race theory does nothing but perpetuate the same narrative. It plants the same seed of divisiveness. So why do you want to keep telling the same distorted and divisive story, and especially to our children in the form of education? I ask again, why? Does it help our lagging test scores? Does it equip our children with the tools needed to enter the real world? And by real world, I mean workforce and making a better living, financial literacy, and proper decision making. Does it teach our children to value one another regardless of skin color? Does it teach our children to take pride in our country, a country where a man can be a slave, come from nothing, yet give birth to a generation of children that have everything? I remember conversing amongst a group of black friends, and we all reflected on our own childhood and how black history was a small section in a history book comprised of only slavery, Jim Crow laws, and civil rights. Slavery ended in 1865. 146 years worth of information since then, and yet it's filled with nothing but slavery, trauma, inferiority, and that's all the history anyone ever shoves in front of us. Again, why? What is the purpose? CRT is not an accurate account of black history or American history for that matter, and it is imperative we do not allow it to pass as such. I'm sure everyone here is aware of the 2018 and 2019 state report card. That's the only one I could find available online. Less than 33% of Hamilton County students were found to read at grade level. When critical race theory is mentioned, the average individual cannot define it, and our children most certainly cannot define, let alone comprehend its complexities. I value teachers tremendously. My own father is an educator, but teachers are teachers, and they do not, and nor does anyone on the board replace the parents. Many of you may be thinking, CRT is banned in the state of Tennessee. This is not a problem in the Hamilton County School District. Well, I do have with me an assignment given to my son directly following the banning of CRT in our state. He was provided with the banning article with a writing prompt, "What is the importance of CRT in the public school system?" This is a problem, and I would like it noted. The focus should be our core subjects, subjects that are not excelling in, language arts, math, science, and social studies, with the addition of trades, work readiness, and financial literacy. And let's be clear, the fact we are not excelling in these subjects has nothing to do with race. My son is in the gifted program. He has a 4.0. He scored a 25 on the ACT as a sophomore with absolutely no prep. That leads me to the importance of school choice, and as highlighted in the HCDE mission statement, the environment of our schools, and how all of this correlates with critical race theory. I grew up in Malin, Tennessee, graduated from Malin High School. At the time I attended, blacks made up 15% of the school population. Whites were dominant. As I reflect on my experience, not once did I feel inferior, as CRT suggests. Not once was I oppressed. The bar and expectations that were set at the time were for all students, regardless of race. I left the public school system and my family knowing I could accomplish anything, and my skin color was the very least of my concern. Fast forward to having a child who attended Orchard Knott Middle and currently attends Brainerd High School. In both instances, he has been stereotyped, bar lowered, viewed as being at a disadvantage, and even labeled with phrases like, "he's not like the rest of them," by an actual teacher. CRT would do nothing but reinforce this culture of inferiority and further alienate our black children. We must not teach black children that any challenge or burden that they may face comes from white people. We must not teach white children that they are the cause of the plight in black America. We must teach all children, regardless of color, you are the writer of your own life, and any system set in place that threatens your dignity and freedom, you have the power to eliminate, one voice and one vote at a time. I urge you not to let CRT into our schools, stand firm on the Tennessee banning of CRT, and hold every single educator accountable who has the audacity to take matters into their own hands. Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Angela Favarolo.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Chairman Wingate and Board and Dr. Johnson for granting me time today. I'm Angela. I'm a parent, a community member, a volunteer, and recent graduate of Leadership Hamilton County Schools. There are a few items I'd like to address from today's actual agenda this evening. First, if I'm allowed, I would like to extend a tremendous thank you to Dr. Johnson on behalf of many parents, educators, and community members for being a sound and productive leader over the last 4 years. We're excited to see the seeds you've planted flourish, and we hope your successor nurtures our district well enough to bear the fruits of that labor. We wish you well on your next venture, and you will be missed. On to the agenda, Section 9A3, Normal Park Zone addition. While I'm in favor of this unique addition, as this addition isn't accessible through any other school zone, and doesn't only expands this school zone because of its the access to the property. I do encourage the board to discuss how, as a district, we can plan to keep the integrity of our school communities in light of gentrification in these areas and rapidly increasing congestion, as well as proactively thinking about other areas headed in the same direction in other districts. How to navigate zoning and listening to community members and their recommendations, and how to partner with City Council and County Commission and their processes and how they can impact and benefit the communities as well. Moving on to sections 9A4, 9A5, and 9A6 regarding to pay for school nutrition and school-age childcare. The increase on 9A4, I fully support and would request to hear the timeframe goal in which these pay increases reach their livable wage or above $15 an hour. I didn't see where the goal of timeframe in order to reach that wage. Especially in light of heavily competitive food service jobs in our community and the newly announced benefits from fast food chains. They have clearly outperformed years past, and retention of top performing teams is vital to our district. Moving on to 9A5, the one-time bonus for SACC out of ESSER funds. I absolutely support this one-time bonus given the additional loads these programs took on over the last year, and would like to know how much they did do this last year. 9A6, we'd like to, or I would like to make note that their wages are, for lack of a better word, pretty embarrassing. And this increase is a start, but those entrusted with the care of our children should be paid competitively and substantially more. I would like to address some of the topics brought forth tonight by some of the other groups that haven't really been active in Hamilton County Schools or social media influencers. I would urge them to learn the roles and goals of our school board. Demanding curriculum to be removed that doesn't exist is a waste of our time that should be afforded to our students. The law surrounding this is clear. Discrimination by race is protected federally under law. If someone feels their child has been discriminated against, that's an HR issue that should be presented to your school's administration and the Department of Education, as I believe we just say every meeting over and over that those complaints should be addressed directly. The policy created that dictates the curriculum is topic for state legislature that our school board does not dictate. They work within the confines of those policies, and ours are currently heavily regulated regarding this topic. Comprehensive history isn't CRT. It's simply our past. And as the old saying goes, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Friends, these times are very reminiscent of those past, and I hope we always strive to give our kids the liberty to learn more than we have and to think outside of the boxes we have built. Thank you all for your time.
Esther Hart.
Good afternoon. My name is Esther. I'm a mother of one. He's a rising first grader, and I'm grateful that he'll be entering the Hamilton County School District this fall, especially after all the hard work you all have done in our county in the past 4 years. Thank you so much. I'm grateful that we'll be able to benefit from some of that. I just wanted to share an analogy that I kind of think will demonstrate sort of an emotional space that a lot of us are holding right now. And I want to start with a quote from James Baldwin. "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." So if you will, imagine with me that you're at home, sitting on your couch, feeling depressed and exhausted for some reason. You glance over to your left and you notice a large red wine stain on the couch cushion. When did that get there? You think to yourself, surprised that you hadn't noticed it before. Suddenly you become aware that the TV remote in your hand is a mess. It's so sticky and greasy that some of the buttons don't even work. A feeling of disgust washes over you. As you look down at the sticky remote in your hands, you notice that the throw rug beneath your feet, the hand-woven one that you love so much, is absolutely filthy. Wow, when was the last time I vacuumed, you wonder aloud. Next, your senses are overwhelmed by an unpleasant smell that makes your eyes water. It's coming from the kitchen. Reluctantly, you follow it all the way to the stinky kitchen garbage, where old food is rotting not far from a sink that's overflowing with dirty dishes. Even the coffee pot is growing its own little mold colony. How long has it been like this, you ask yourself, shocked and embarrassed that everything is in such a state. You work your way around your whole house and find similar conditions in every room. Dead plants, sticky surfaces, mounds of dust. Your entire home is in far worse of a condition than you knew. How could you not have seen it before? And then, as if a switch has been flipped in your mind, the idea of keeping things the way they are is more unbearable to you now than the idea of making a change. You take a deep breath and leave to go get some cleaning supplies. When you return later that day, Lysol, sponges, and mop bucket in hand, you're surprised to find yourself walking into a nearly empty house. You try not to panic as you question your sanity. Am I in the wrong house? Did I really see the things that I saw? The dishes are gone, the coffee pot is gone, your favorite rug is gone, even the TV remote and the wine-stained couch cushion is gone. And here in this moment, you ironically find yourself desperate to find all the things that just moments ago you'd been dreading to see. For all the mold and the dirt and the rot, these were your things, and you were ready to face them and clean them and take better care of them. Where did everything go? You slowly walk through what's left of your house, feeling the weight of the emptiness surrounding you. Turning the corner, your nose once again encounters a whiff of that unpleasant garbage smell you recognized from earlier. Relieved and surprised by your relief in smelling this stench, you follow its scent all the way to the end of the hall, to a closet door firmly shut and locked. Your housemate is there, almost finished installing a padlock to the outside of the door. She notices you there and beams with happiness and pride as she proclaims, "I fixed the mess." Perhaps she expected you to respond with gratitude, and maybe that's why she now seems so annoyed with you when you stare back at her blankly, unsure what to even say. You reach for the closet door, and she quickly jumps in front of it to block you. "You cannot open that," she says. "It will all fall on our heads and crush us to death." You look into her eyes, and you recognize her pain and her fear and her shame. You recognize all that because you feel the same way. You place a hand on her shoulder, look into her eyes, and respond plainly, "I'm scared too. It is a lot. But I know we can face this together. We'll wash the dishes, do the laundry, scrub out the stains, and revive the plants. We'll vacuum the rug and mend the broken things, and we can even use the garbage to start a compost pile in the backyard. We'll take it one step at a time, piece by piece." So I want to leave us there in that little story, standing in front of the closet door together, because it feels like that's the moment we're in right now. We can't just keep shoving things in closets, whether it's about teaching sex ed or critical race theory or anything else that comes up. We have to just be willing to face it in its entirety, especially the mess, taking ownership of all of it, not just the pretty parts. Thank you.
Thank you. John Baker.
Good evening. My name is John Baker. This is going to be kind of a couple-part presentation because of what was said from the board earlier. I have been taking classes at UTC, and I can tell you this, that the things that I hear in those classes are not what I remember learning in school. They are changing the facts to fit some sort of political agenda. And I can say this, that this didn't come from Steve Engel. This didn't come from the Nashville. This came from the teacher. And the idea that you think you can hold the reins on 3,000 teachers is going to be a tough call. Unfortunately, many of the teachers that we are getting now are coming from left-leaning institutions. And so if the student is with the teacher long enough, they become like the teacher. So they're producing more and more. So that is my comment about knowing what's going on. Because earlier, one of the other delegates talking about putting books in the schools. Have any of you had a chance to review the books in these 15 libraries that they've installed? Have you got any idea what these books are? I would highly recommend you just go in and randomly grab a few books and see if you think this is good. So just keep that in mind. The primary reason I asked to speak tonight is to issue a notice of liability. I have copies here addressed to each member of the board and the current superintendent. And thank you for your service, sir. This is concerns vaccines administered to minors 18 and under. This is your official and personal notice of liability. You are not a medical professional, and therefore, you are unlawfully practicing medicine by prescribing, recommending, and using coercion to insist on this experimental medical treatment. Whereas the Nuremberg Code prohibits forcing or coercing anyone under any circumstance to participate in a medical experiment. And the code states the voluntary consent of the human, absolutely essential. 2, all the treatments being marketed as COVID-19 vaccines are still in phase 3 clinical trials until 2023. Clinical trials, and hence qualify as medical experiments. People taking these treatments are enrolled in clinical trials. 3, none of these treatments have been approved but only granted emergency use authorization, hence cannot be mandated nor can informed consent be dispensed with. 4, most vaccines are trialed for at least 5 to 10 years, and COVID-19 vaccines have been in trials for less than 1 year. Less than 1 year. 5, no other corona vaccine, MERS, SARS-1, has been approved for market due to antibody-dependent enhancement resulting in severe illness and deaths in animal models. 6, numerous doctors, scientists, and medical experts are issuing dire warnings about the short and long term, especially if we start making kids get shots. We're going to look at this for the next few decades. The long-term effects of COVID-19 vaccines, including but not limited to death, infertility, miscarriages, Bell's palsy, blood clots, cancer, inflammatory conditions, autoimmune disease, early onset dementia, convulsions, anaphylaxis, and antibody-dependent enhancement leading to death. Now, this is a two-sided page, so I'll dispense with the rest of it because it doesn't get any better. The point is that this is a country based on liberty, and we claim to have responsibility for our own health. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, then I did that right. Thank you.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yeah, sir, how do I turn on my mic? Okay. Mr. Baker, I just wanted to ask a point of clarification.
Sure.
Are you saying that we have required or enforced COVID shots on students or teachers? I'm just not clear.
I'm not saying that you're requiring. What I'm trying to do is head you off at the pass so that you're not entertaining these kind of ideas.
I got it.
Because school starts in a couple weeks and you could make a motion on it,
Four
make it
weeks.
happen. So
Yes, got it. I don't possess that amount of power, and neither do the other 8 people sitting here. We don't have the ability to require shots for students or teachers, and we don't. But I just wanted to clarify what you're saying, because the way that I was receiving it is that you were making an accusation that we have. And so I wanted to clarify for the public what exactly you're saying. So I appreciate
no,
that. Thank you.
This is not an accusation that you have. This is just a notice. So, thank you.
I encourage you to speak to state legislators with the same note, because at the end of the day, our state legislators are who would enforce something like that. And really, I give you all the same advice, that if you are worried about curriculum and what is being required to be taught, or ultimately how and where it's coming from, our state legislation is the right place for you to be. And we also spend a lot of time trying to get answers from them on a number of questions that may or may not coincide with your questions too. So I highly encourage you to call your state legislators. If you're concerned about things in regards to where funding comes from, I highly encourage you to call your county commissioner. It's just really important that if we're going to receive information and hear opinions, there are a whole lot of other counterparts that have more power than us and that also play in the same education field that need to hear your concerns too. And I truly mean this. I'm grateful for your voices and for you to be here. I've been thrilled to see more parents here than I've ever seen in the last 5 years. But I think it's really important that if you want to get real work done, we got to be strategic together and we got to have solutions. I didn't hear a lot of solutions today. I always want to know solutions. If I had more time, I'd ask you all to come back to the mic and tell me what solutions you're looking for, because that's all that's running through my head whenever you're speaking. Whether I agree with what you say or not, it doesn't matter because I want to know your solutions. But more importantly, there are other people that are making really big decisions, bigger decisions than the 9 of us have the ability or the opportunity or the power to make, and they should hear your voices too. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Ms. Thurman.
Just a point of clarification to that, the state does the standards, we pick the curriculum. A matter of fact, we're getting ready to do a math curriculum. So, yes, we do have a lot of power about what's taught in Hamilton County schools. It does not come from the state. They just make the standards and lay things out. But we choose those. We vote on them every time. So.
They choose the standards, and we have a list to choose within that standards. So they create the buffet, and I have a plate, and I decide what food I eat from that buffet. That's the best metaphor of how the state and school boards work together. At the end of the day, the state creates the buffet, and we go and choose what food we want. Do I want chicken or do I want steak? That's all the options I get. If I'm a vegetarian, I have no options.
Yeah. And board and community, as curriculum is selected for point of clarity, they identify the standards, but they also have an approved list of curriculum. And so you select from the list of curriculum options that are there. You can find the ones that were available for literacy that were approved. They're the same with math. They're the same with all the rest of the content areas. So, as school districts, you can ask for a waiver to be able to select something else, but it comes from that list that's approved by the state. The standards and the curriculum, both are approved at the state level.
Thanks. Stephanie Hinton.
Good evening to Dr. Johnson, Chairman Wingate, and the others. Gosh, it's with great pleasure that I stand here, and I'm not concerned about what anybody says. I'm retired. Because it's always been like a nervous thing to come in this room and that kind of thing. But I do not have that fear anymore, and I want to say what I want to say, okay? So it's very refreshing to be here, and number one, I'd like to give all the accolades to Dr. Johnson, the senior staff, for the best years that I have ever had in Hamilton County. I retired after 45 years. Under multiple superintendents, multiple directors, multiple everything. And I'm so glad to have been a part of a winning team. So let's give, thank you. So I guess I'm the unique person here, maybe I'm not. I have visited and sat in classrooms in every one of the schools in Hamilton County as Director of Teaching and Learning. So there are some things that I would like to say regarding remarks, but that's not why I'm here tonight. But I'll come back to. But I technically have visited every school and visited every classroom. So there are a lot of things I could say, but I'll hold that off. What I would like to say, I was glad to hear you mention Dr. Johnson's strategic plan. There were so many good things that happened when Dr. Johnson came. And once again, thank you for allowing me to be part of that team. And I just hate to see you leave. But I left, so, what can I say? So anyway, so, I mean, I'm a realist here. I don't play games with people. But anyway, as I said, I was around for 45 years, and during these years, it's going to get a little sticky board. There was always talk about that school board. Most of you are not even a part of the board, as I've said before. I've been around more than 45 years. But the rumors still persist. Then, we didn't always believe that decisions were made all about the kids or about the teachers, and I hope your decisions will in the future. I'm before you asking that you respect the process and not once again change the process as we move forward to look for a new superintendent. Because it has happened before. I think we all know it. The community knows it. The public knows it. Some people change the rules to get their people in. What I would like not to see happen is for that to happen again. So there's really no point in talking about fair or unjust if there were no conflicts. Obviously there are, but I would like for you to consider the children as you go through this process. and not lean towards your own perceived bias. I think one of the other ladies mentioned earlier to let go of your personal and political beliefs when you begin to make decisions. We know or believe that what is fair or not doesn't just happen. We would like for you to remember the character traits that we have emphasized with our kids over the years. And we would like for you not to just do things just because the positions in which you sit. I mean, just be honest and fair and kind and just and righteous and all that stuff. So there is a succession plan. Hope you all know that. Just follow it. There is the superintendent, the deputy superintendent, the chief. Follow the plan while you're looking for a new superintendent, while you're determining a transparent process. So we're not asking for any favors. We're just asking you, as Spike Lee says, do the right thing. So let's work toward the change and change the perception that the public has, because as I said, I've been around 45 years. A lot of people mention things to me that I would not dare bring to your attention here, but Hamilton County residents need to know that it's all about business and not about any bias against who or what or where you came from. And I would just like to end once again with thank you so much, Dr. Johnson, for allowing me to work on a winning team. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to presentations portion of our agenda, and I will turn it over to Dr. Johnson.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Board. Appreciate the opportunity to share. As normal, at the end of the year, we do a kind of end-of-year review of where we've been at this point of the year, and that's what is before you. So to give some updates around some of the work that's there, and I'm going to see if I can get this clicker going. All right. So in 2017 when we started, and I'm not, I think the important thing to give context around for some that may not have been, many of these slides are going to be familiar for our school board or for those that have been really engaged, because we've brought them back every single time. I'm not bringing them today because it's my last formal school board meeting. These are what we've come back to since I've been here. And it's been the hallmark of the work, and this was set by this school board as we worked through what we wanted and what you wanted the headlines to be and what you wanted our work and our focus to be. And I appreciate the work that you've done with that and that vision. I guess we can go next slide because I don't think the clicker's clicking. Oh, I've got it off, Sherry Ford. So I'm getting ready to retire with Steve Highlander, your tech challenged person here. But that strategic plan involves at the center of it the acceleration of student achievement. That is the heartbeat of this school district. That's the heartbeat of the work, and it is a passion. If I was like talking about what I loved and have loved the most in public education, it is the acceleration of student achievement, and it's making sure that our students are prepared for the next trajectory, and I'm so proud that's been at the heartbeat of our work. I know the results of 2018 and 19 were mentioned. One of the things I will take note, and you'll see as I go through, that literacy is still a challenge, will continue to be a challenge. It is a statewide challenge, it is a national challenge. But in 2016-17, before we arrived as a team, Hamilton County had 5 schools that would have been an A. In 2018-19, which was the last academic year that there were results, we had 32 schools that would have been rated an A. And that type of forward momentum moved the district from being 130 of 147 school systems to the second in the state of Tennessee. But as Greg Wilkie mentioned, last year was immensely challenging. We had obviously a global pandemic that disrupted so many of the things that we see as normal. Our own community was hit with a tornado, and we've had political and civil and racial unrest at an all-time high. And unfortunately, it's come to the front door of the schoolhouse. And I'm an academic. I love teaching and learning. Unfortunately, those challenges have come to the front door of the schoolhouse for which my son goes to school. And I do hope that we can focus on the focus and you'll get to see the focus as you spend time with us through the rest of this presentation. We had a challenge. We were able to go to school 90% of the time last year. Masked, not, we were able to go to school 90% of the time. And there are very few urban school systems that have an urban subset that were able to go to campus. In fact, as recent as last month, I was sitting with a group of superintendents from across the country, not sitting, I was Zooming, that's what we do now, Zooming with some superintendents across the country, and they were still trying to determine what the reopening and re-entry to school looked like. And to be able to say our kids were on campus is something that we're very, very proud of. And that was recognized. And so I think the purpose of this board is we take a moment to talk about this last year is to really elevate the fact that, yes, we had a pandemic and we had real challenges, and we have real challenges. Recovery from the pandemic, the civil unrest, those things will remain challenges. But the truth is we accomplished a lot of amazing work, and we have an engaged community. Everything from the virtual learning centers. We recognize that although given the option, about 35% of our families chose, or our students chose, to be in a virtual environment. And in that environment, we knew we had some students that weren't accessing coursework or wasn't being pushed along because they did not have that accountability structure. And so many in our community stepped up, and those things were featured at a national level. Our work in our HR department was featured at a national level. We had a case study that was done on us at a national level about how we were tracking and monitoring. Really the hallmark of us operating in the pandemic was to be transparent. We were probably the first school system in the country to publish the positive cases and to publish our positivity. We wanted our community to know exactly where we were, and those types of things were shared. We did share, I want to go back, I know this was mentioned earlier, we did share that vaccines are an option. We did try to make vaccines readily available for our employees because that's important. That's important that if they want access to the vaccine, that they don't have to go here, there, and yon to get it. We want to make sure that it was at their fingertips and they could take advantage of that. Again, our community continued to be recognized. We can really be proud of the fact that, again, we have a great resource in EPB and philanthropy and business and industry, and we're able to make sure that every student, as we saw the digital divide being a challenge, every student that was economically disadvantaged can be connected, not just this year, but for the next 9 years, for the next decade in total. Our students were able to be connected. And our schools continue to achieve. Hamilton County Collegiate High was a blue ribbon school this past year. And we also have Thrasher that's up for blue ribbon this year. Very selective process, and you can see only a few in the state of Tennessee get that opportunity. And Miss Yang at Signal Mountain Middle High School was a presidential scholar and one of 161 across the country. We had not just schools do amazing things, we had students do amazing things. Our student artists were highlighted, and our students, again, continue to win, whether it was art, our teachers led, whether it was in the arts band, and you can see our teachers continue to support, as well as Curriculum Associates recognized Ms. Brandy Adam at Red Bank for her amazing work. And when we talk about planning, our teachers won a National Lesson Plan Award, and we're just so amazed at the work that teachers continue to do. As Mr. Wilkie said, this last year was exceptionally tough, and I'm so proud of the way that our teachers, leaders, and this board allowed us to respond to this pandemic. So digging into the focus, I think the roadmap ahead that can go either way, but just to highlight some things that are still the work, that will continue to be the work. Summer Reach is going on right now in the second session of Summer Reach. About 6,700 students have been a part of that summer program. We actually were the pilot for summer programming. We had 2,000 students last summer in the height of the pandemic that were on our campuses. Mitzi Delker's here. We were trying to provide service for special ed students. We stepped out there because we felt like it was the right thing to do for students. And this year, statewide, every school system started summer programming, and we have continued and expanded as a result. Our principals have been hard at work. We brought our principals in for a couple days for a retreat. Our retreats don't look like many business retreats. Our retreats involve water and box lunches and a lot of work. But we spent the first day really reconnecting really making sure. We hadn't been together. Everybody had been Zooming, and so we got opportunity to reset. And the second day really digging into the important work, and have spent some days since making sure that operations and such are aligned. It's important to note that in our district, about 70% of our test takers are in a subgroup. That means they're Black, Hispanic, Native American, a student with disability, an English learner, or economically disadvantaged. And it's important for us as a district to be intentional about how we support that 70%, because you can see the disparity and the difference in academic performance. Academic performance is our focus, not because it's not just because of the number. I would share openly here, our senior leadership team just got done reading Simon Sinek's Infinite Game. We've really been focused on beyond the finite and really pushing to the next level. So it's not just about the number. What the numbers represent is our students are becoming better positioned for post-secondary, and that our students can thrive. We want all of our students to thrive, and that's really what our work is about. And so a couple of years ago, Jen Bronson, only Kill was involved, several others, our team really worked to make sure that we could stand up student success planning, because as we look at our diverse learners, which that's just what they are, diverse learners, we know we need to support them wherever they are, however they are. And we have the fortune of being in a community that has and does provide resource. And we want to make sure that whatever resource they're providing, that we align it really, really tightly to meet the needs of students. And so we rolled out student success plans to 14 of our schools. They're individualized plans for every student that make sure that the needs are met, that their needs are met, and we're aligning community resources, identifying areas of deficit. And that is expanding this year, but we continued this work even in this past school year. As we talk about literacy, we know that 89% of students that enter our schools off track remain off track in third grade, by third grade, and that is just the truth. So that early learning work is going to continue to be critical as we move forward, and we're looking at partnerships with the county and the city to really make sure, and philanthropy as well, to really make sure that our early learning as students enter, they enter even more prepared. Our teachers have been hard at work in state training, Reading 360, that's based on phonics, really resetting how we do our work. We started that last year with curriculum work and expanded it this year. And again, our teachers continue to respond after being, exhausted. They just have continued to show up, and that's what so many teachers do. In regards to future-ready students, I mentioned this, but we are probably the only community in the country. I know we're the only community in the country that has a decade commitment. Many school systems took an approach, and communities took an approach of providing hotspots in a temporary fashion, again, because of the great resource we have with EPB. And you can see the cross-sector partnership here, the city, the county, philanthropy. We were able to stand this up, and obviously our school board in their direction were able to stand this up and continue to expand digital fabrication and opportunities. It is about opportunities and closure of the opportunity gap for all students, and making sure they have access to everything that's there at their fingertips, so that they can be whatever it is they want and desire to be as students. We continued our focus on the trades this year, again, in the midst of a pandemic. This is the work that went on in your school system, and in partnership with the county mayor and city mayor and the Association of General Contractors and many others. In the next year or so, there will be opening, and Scott Bennett, who spent a lot of time helping us figure out how to get Garber facilitated. The next year there will be an opportunity for our students to get vocational training in the construction fields, and whether it's electrical or framing, this work is so critical and important. In the midst of the pandemic, we were able to continue to move that important work forward. Work-based learning continued. I don't know if we probably haven't done enough, and I'm pushing on Cody a little bit here as he's sitting there, but South Tree and Ironworks, you all know about the stomp, but South Tree and Ironworks, we have students from Howard and East Ridge who are able to go there for a part of their day, for the full day, and do teaching a part, do learning a part of the day, and work a part of the day, and earn a wage, and get hands-on, a hands-on opportunity unlike any other. So this is a model that is really taking great root, and we hope that continues to spread. In the midst of a global pandemic, we saw our students, unfortunately I know these numbers as the screen went black, but we saw our students continue to get credentials and certifications. So in 16-17, before we arrived, we went from about 60 certifications and credentials to over 1,100 this year. Last year, you'll see we had 316. We more than tripled that this year, and that's a testament to the work of teachers, leaders, staff, John Maynard, Blake Freeman, Neely Parker, our community superintendent, so many folks that understand the importance. And speaking to that strategic plan, what doesn't get measured doesn't get done, right? And this was an area that the board challenged us to measure, and we were able to get done. And everybody's turning their screen. They're nice to you when you're leaving, and so I'm just messing with y'all. They've been nice to me the whole time. And so we're very proud of that. And you know, again, all of this is your update in the midst of the pandemic, because all we've been talking about is the pandemic. I think in a lot of regards and other things, I want you to know as a board that the work has continued in the midst of the pandemic. We are launching micro colleges, and actually we should have put this in here, received $2 million in state grant that we applied for innovative high schools, innovative high school approach, which this is a part of. That allows us to make sure that our students in Hamilton County, your students in Hamilton County, have an opportunity to get access to more advanced coursework, more dual enrollment and advanced placement coursework by really taking a focus on two things: which teachers do we have that are better or are ready and equipped to be able to teach those courses, but then secondly, what courses do we have that we can pivot and flip to dual enrollment, dual credit types of courses. And so we're very excited about that. In regards to great teachers and leaders, Penny and her team continued to dig in with making sure that we were preparing a pipeline of leaders. One of the things 3 or 4 years ago, as I arrived 4 years ago, we knew that all of our leadership development, so much of our leadership development was happening externally, and great work, great partnership with PEF. But we really believe that with 82-ish% of our budget being people, that we need to invest in our people. I spent yesterday with a group of our, not necessarily senior leaders, but leaders in our district that are leading big areas like transportation and school nutrition that you sometimes don't see, but they're doing big bodies of work. And so we really want to make sure that we developed our leaders. And to the school, from the school standpoint, had 18 aspiring assistant principals that came through the pipeline, and 8 aspiring principals that came through the pipeline. And so again, in the midst of the pandemic, we saw it important, felt it important to stand that work up. Board, you've done an amazing job of trying to really push on compensation. I think to answer one of the questions that was posed tonight about how and when do we get to $15 an hour, we've had a goal of increasing $1 each year. And as the budget allows, we love to increase it $2 or $3 a year. We're able to step back this year and move it, but we want to continue that, and we've continued the investment in our and with our employees. Had a chance with Jeanette and Collaborative Conference in the day to really talk about how we continue and the district continues to move that important work forward. And then again, in the midst of a global pandemic, we've been committed to growing your own. One of the challenges in our district, and it's because it's measured at the state level and it is reported on, and the state board has identified that it is important and made school boards across the state of Tennessee adopt educator diversity policies, that we know that educator diversity and representation is a challenge. It's a challenge in the field. It is an absolute challenge in the field. It is a challenge in the field. Educators are a challenge in the field. Getting educators to teach is a challenge. I talked to a social studies teacher today, and he asked the question, how do I teach history? And I said, I don't know. We're going to figure it out. But education is a challenge for our teachers, right? And it's in particular challenge to get diverse teachers that students can see themselves in. And so one thing we know is that we have many classified employees that have degrees. We were astonished by the number of employees that are classified, that have degrees, that are very skilled at working with children. Penny and her team, and again, because of state grant and opportunity, we're able to continue this, or really rev this up and put some fuel into this partnership and be able to grow our own, which again is a commitment to growing our own talent in our district. And then again, our partners with one-to-one, we've been able to do whole teacher, well teacher, whole child, whole teacher wellness, and really making sure whether it's one-to-one or wellness Wednesdays that were stood up. I clicked on it one day, and I think y'all were cooking. There was some kind of cooking meal and doing some other stuff. But again, the stress and challenges that are going on externally, our teachers struggle and have challenges with those, and we have to support our people, and that's just a belief. Something that you won't see, but you will see, and if you miss it, you'll know it, is your paycheck. And our finance team with HR and with IT underwent a major transformation. And you know what I'm proud of? You didn't hear Pete. And that's the work, right? And so a major shift in our platform with ICMs and Munis that really is going to position them to be able to grab data and be more nimble and more responsive in regards to the software that we're providing to our systems. And a big challenge that we know remains is our facilities. Y'all seen this slide again many times, over and over again, that we're 7.5 million square feet with an average building age of 40 years old. And in our facilities report, 51% were not where we wanted them to be. They were fair or poor. And the state of some of our facilities is extremely poor, in my humble opinion. And but we also know that we can do amazing things when we dig in and do the really important work. And so you see here pictures of Harrison and pictures of East Hamilton, which opened this year in the midst of a pandemic, and very proud of that. And then again, you as a board approved CSLA, and they've got a fence around it, so I know something's going on over there at Lakeside, and excited about that project as it comes to fruition. In the coming weeks, I hope to even share more meat around Blueprint 2030. And provide for you some ideas around where you might head, and as the next leader takes the reins, try to do my part in really strengthening this area, as it's an identified area that I want to be as helpful as possible as I transition, if y'all let me transition tonight. And then in regards to the engagement of, if you can't have fun in the midst of like challenging times, and then in regards to engaging community, I think to the point, right? I hope this community harnesses this season of engagement, but also gets aligned. I see several faces that are familiar. I had a chance at the last board meeting. I don't remember your name. I don't remember but I see several faces I had a chance to spend some time with after the school board meeting, and I hope that the engagement of the community remains, and that we, and you as a community can coalesce around what's really important. But you saw that the reopening community survey, we have more respondents than we've ever had to surveys, and we just put out another survey which will provide even more feedback on. It's just now come in, survey feedback around ESSER and the third really tranche of funds that have come from the federal government. And you can see kind of the top 6, and there really wasn't much variation between the 6, but these are the top 6 areas that people challenged us to look at investments in and for. And so I just end with this. These are 3 of our amazing recent graduate scholars. You see Miss Macy Tidmore, who sat down there next to Miss Thurman, and Kobe Rivers, and Leigh Hannah, who is and Kobe is a student at Brainerd, and Leigh is a student at East Hamilton. Macy, well, they were students at those schools. Macy was a student at Collegiate High. But they've all gone on to do and are going on to do really amazing things. Leigh was the first student from East Hamilton to be accepted, and I believe like 95% of his schooling was paid for at Harvard University. And so just there are so many great success stories. There are so many challenges as well, but so many things that our children, our teachers, our leaders, community did. And our hope is that we continue to do the work to make sure that all children thrive and experience a future without limits. So again, in the midst of this year, that's a bit of an update on the work beyond the pandemic and beyond the other stuff. We still were committed to moving the strategic plan and the strategic direction of the district forward. Thank you. We'll take any questions.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yeah, Kobe, is he the one that went to Middle Tennessee?
Mm-hmm.
He is.
I need a contact info for him.
Okay,
Anybody
we'll
has
do
it? Thank
Yeah.
you.
Mrs. Hill.
Can I just say that's a heck of a body of work, Brian? Dr. Johnson, thank you so much for leading our system through an unprecedented year. From frankly, I think that's what we should all be standing up, giving people high fives and ovations for, is the way that our teachers and our students and our leaders have persevered this year. So thank you very much.
Go ahead, Mrs. Robinson.
Okay. My hope is that for the next school board year, we upgrade to lights again, where we can.
Hopefully the new superintendent.
Maybe our new superintendent will get us lights.
Get that done.
I know, it's true. I don't know who did, but I'm
I'm
going to
putting
hunt
the
them down.
dollars towards the classroom. Don't
Yes.
don't spend it while I'm here.
Yeah.
Wait till I'm gone. My desk, I ain't gonna get into it. But
You know, it feels surreal to look back at the 2021 school year because, to be frank, it feels like it was 10 years long rather than 12 months. But as a school board member, I just want to tell you that I don't think I could have been more pleased with how our school year went. It was not perfect, especially in the middle of it. The middle is always the hardest part, the day-to-day. But gosh, looking back, like, man, we won 2020 and early 2021. Now the rest of my 2021 is like not going that well right now, but that's not y'all's problem. So, but actually speaking as a parent, Dr. Johnson, I just want to tell you thank you for making incredibly hard decisions. Decisions that were not always popular. And to the other 7 of you, I say the same thing. We made hard decisions this past year that sometimes weren't popular, but as a parent, my son got an excellent education last year in the midst of a time where most students his age were primarily at home doing virtual learning or maybe missing learning in general. So I just wanted to congratulate the leadership team and Dr. Johnson on a great school year. And by far, you cannot say that, I mean, at the end of the day, it's got to be the hardest battle that we've ever fought, right? And so, like, everyone should put last year on their resume and definitely highlight it and remember it as lessons learned. So thank you.
Mr. Perez.
So I'll wait for your item to give you your accolades. But at this moment, I want to thank publicly all our staff really in what has been an excruciating year where you have poured double time. I won't say overtime because there could be implications to that. But you've really doubled down with the work that has been asked of you here present in the administration central office, but those teachers, some probably in the audience, but some listening or watching that just exhausted themselves for the sake of our students. None of this was easy. None of this was expected. None of this was planned for, and we really pulled it off and did an incredible job. And I want to thank everybody who participated. This, Dr. Johnson, if there is one thing I'll say about this regarding you is, one thing I always appreciate is you've always been public about your recognition that this isn't you, this is a team of incredible people that surround you. And of course, the team has a leader, but we'll talk about that later. But truly, personally, as a father, as a husband, as many different family relations to the students here and community relations, I want to thank everybody out there. This has been difficult, but we have really persevered and been strong and resilient, and I cannot wait for normality. And I hope next year we get to enjoy as much of it as possible. So thank you all who really made it happen this year.
Mr. Smith.
Just amazing. Thank you for the report. You guys are amazing. There's just part of me, even though I don't always agree, but unless you're comatose, you can't help but see the progress that's been made. And as a dad, a granddad, and so immersed in kids' lives every day, and will be, as long as God gives me breath. I just feel like I need to wash y'all's feet. I do. And we got a lot of work to do. We do. We got a lot of work to do. We're not where we want to be, but my goodness, you guys, Dr. Johnson, you guys are amazing. You're just amazing. Thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments about?
I'm saving my crying for later, so.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, so before we get to approval of our consent agenda, if anyone needs to read the disclaimer statement, let's please go ahead and do that at this time. Go ahead, Mr. Perez.
I declare that I have a spouse and sisters-in-law who work for the school system, and that the board's vote on so many things on this agenda may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes, I declare that I have a relative who works for the school system, and that some things on the board agenda may have an effect on my relative's appointment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
Mrs. Jones?
I declare that I have a relative who works for the school system, and that the board's vote on budget policies, etc., may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
Mr. McClendon?
I have to read this now.
Yay!
I declare I have a fiance who works for the school system, and the board's vote on budget policies, etc., may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
All right, Mr. Smith, do you need to read that?
Sorry.
I don't know, you just had your cup out there. All right.
Sorry, I do. I thought you were just going down the line.
Go ahead, Mrs. Robinson.
I declare that I have a relation or a family member-in-law who works for the school system, and that the board's vote on everything may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Sorry.
I don't know who got the second there, Mrs. Ford. All right, Mr. Perez. All right, do we have any items we'd like to take a look at? Anything we need to pull? Nothing?
I'm going to go ahead and pull what we, let me see.
I held it out there long enough, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. You did. But just to make a comment, but I'm not sure if it's here, but or if it was later, yeah, it's later. I'm not going to pull anything.
All right, Mrs. Ford.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith? Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. All right, so that drops us down to board matters. First item there would be under Chief Operations Officer. We would have the Battle Academy and Brown Academy zones. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
I think Mr. McClendon was the second.
He got it. Give it to him.
All right, any discussion on that item? Okay, Mrs. Ford.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith? Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Next item would be the Harrison Elementary Zone. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Got those? All right, any discussion around that item? Okay, Mrs. Ford.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith? Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Next item would be the Normal Park Zone. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Go ahead, Mrs.
Yes,
Thurman.
I'm going to approve this with the understanding that we will have discussion later about the normal park school situation.
I'd like
Appreciate
us to
that.
have discussion about all school facilities as part of that. I mean, it's a highly complex topic.
All right, any other discussion there? Okay, Mrs. Ford?
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. McClendon.
Yes.
Mr. Perez.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Excuse me, Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Next item there is the recommendation for school nutrition raises. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Perez, and then Mr. McClendon. All right, any discussion on that item? Go ahead, Mr. Perez. Oh,
Go ahead.
Ms. Jones.
I just wanted to make sure that we don't forget about the request during open comment to review the time frame for what that would look like. So I guess we could put that in the on the list of things we'll discuss at a work session, I'm assuming.
So yeah, I think there's two time frames to speak to. Penny can speak to the time frame for this, which is just a matter because they've done all that work with iSIMS now and all the other stuff. It may make it even quicker, but they'll be able to expedite that as soon as the board approves and get it into paychecks. Now, there's a longer term discussion you'll need to have as a board about the $15 an hour goal. Anything?
Yeah, correct. We will work with the teams to expedite it as quickly as possible. As you know, we are transitioning with the systems, but we've already been in talks as far as how to work through that. So,
Mr. Perez, go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. Mine was very similar, so thank you, Kurt, Mrs. Jones. But let me ask a quick question regarding benefits for school nutrition people. What are the situations there?
so our full-time employees have access to the benefits as any other full-time benefited employee. Also, during the pandemic, we enlisted telehealth through 1-to-1, and all of our employees have access to that. And one of the primary reasons for that was specifically for our school nutrition employees who didn't have access to that. One other thing that we've opened up is that new hires, when they have their new hire physical, they can go to the clinics for that service now, because before that was an expense that they had to incur, and it was very expensive for many of them. So we are working through that.
So just as we one day review this, $1 a year by the time we get to where we need to may already be out of the wage that we need. So to the comment that was made by Ms. Robinson, we're part of a large group of people who make decisions, and so we do want to encourage people. This isn't a fight for growth of inflation. This is the fact that we are going to lose valuable people because, as I said, I'm repeating myself here from Monday, but you can recruit people on passion, you can't retain them. Things cost money, and when some of our local fast food restaurants, quick service restaurants, start offering better wages than anything we can even come and close to, we will lose people who have an incredible heart for our students, an incredible love for our students, a passion for our students, but just can't afford to say, I'm staying here. And that to me is heartbreaking and a shame. So, and it's, by the way, not just nutrition. Nutrition is one of them, but there's a lot of positions that fall within that same range. So I'm saying this literally just for the public because I think we all know it. But the reality is we end up every year looking at a budget based on what we can afford, and we should. But if people want their voices heard, they need to also make sure their voices are heard elsewhere. I think we all want everybody in Hamilton County to thrive, including those employees. Thank you.
Mrs. Thurman?
Are we on? Are we back? We still on nutrition? We haven't gone to
That's
the
correct.
next one yet. Have we?
Item
Okay.
4
That's
there.
why I took my thing down. Okay.
Okay. All right, any other discussion there?
Except that these people deserve a raise. They deserve it. As hard as they worked this summer, it's just anybody that helped get that food out this summer. I've said it before. I felt like Lucille Ball on the chocolate line. I was wanted to stuff things in my pocket. They were shoving food at me so long to put in those boxes, but it was really crazy. I one time had to stop and laugh. But anyway, I definitely agree with this.
Okay, Mrs. Ford.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Jones. Yes. Mr. McClendon.
Yes.
Mr. Perez.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Next item there would be the one-time 1% bonus for SAC program employees from the ESSER funds. Do I have a motion to approve?
So, second.
Mr. Perez. All right, any discussion on that item? Okay, Mrs. Ford?
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones, Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mr. Perez.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. And then item number 6, school-age child care employees 1% pay increase. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mrs. Hill?
There's a question about how much work the school-age child care folks had put in. I believe that the timing for last year was 4,000 hours, I think. Is that what was noted in the documents?
Yeah, that's probably right, but it's probably well beyond that now. I mean, they've worked the entire summer and had programs the entire summer, as well as obviously last school year, and again done amazing work.
And even during the school day for the kids,
Absolutely.
as we were in hybrid
Absolutely.
schedule.
And separate and apart, y'all know this year was a little abnormal because I don't think we had any inclement weather, but normally, they're even sometimes there during inclement weather days, and so they are a major saver or support for parents, and very cost effective as well.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes, I think one thing, Joe, we also need to do at a work session is to explain how the school-age child care works. I think by law, we cannot take any money out of the general budget to sustain this program. It has to be self-funded. And so when we lost a lot of money this summer, this is why I was so upset to see some of our major schools did not have child care in them this year. Well, I know one of our largest elementary schools did not, and that really cut into this program. Parents, for different and sundry reasons, chose other things this summer. A lot of it was because there were no field trips, no anything for the kids to do. So hopefully this will catch back up, and we will get back into giving the children more things to do at school-age child care than just going and sitting in a room and getting on to them every time they share their devices with another student. A lot of that thing played into the reason that it's really, like we talked about the other day, the budget for that has really been underwater, I think. And but I would love to see them get a pay increase as well, but until we get the program beefed back up, we can't do that. So that's one thing I think everybody needs to understand, how much money that program used to bring in and what we can do to get it back up where it needs to be. And I just think that's something that the board needs to understand. Thank you.
Mrs. Hill?
But we are voting tonight to give them a pay raise.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Yes, I started saying that. I wish we could give them a little more. People were
Right,
asking about it, and I just want people to understand that's a self-funded program. We can't take money out of the general fund to do that for them.
All right. Anyone else on that item? Okay, Mrs. Ford?
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. All right, so we'll drop down there under items under B. The first item for consideration, number 1, teachers eligible for reinstatement of tenure. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
You have a second? Okay. All right, any discussion on that? Okay, Mrs. Ford?
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. McClendon.
Yes.
Mr. Perez.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Item number 2, pharmacy benefits management services request, a request for proposals. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Mr. Perez?
So here's just a comment that was made Monday, and I'm sure everybody tunes into all the meetings, but for those who are unaware, those teachers or staff, this is an incredible benefit, and it's not the most convenient because there's less sites, and while you may have a pharmacy around the corner, but often, I won't say always, $0 that in addition to that saves the county money when you go pick up your medicines is an amazing benefit. So I just want to encourage one. It's something that I don't know that happens anywhere else, or if we're unique or wherever. But so I repeat my story, which was seeing my own daughter who had wisdom teeth removed, and I went to go pick up a bag of medicines that comes with the process, and I was shocked that you don't pay anything, and then I was more shocked to learn that we save money as a school system through this opportunity for our staff and our teachers. So it's amazing. Thank you.
Mr. McClendon.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of that this is, thank you for your team, Penny. This is something that I think is kind of small in the grand scheme of things for like this board, but like Mr. Perez says, I mean, this is a great savings for our district and a benefit for our employees, and just wanted to say thank you for doing this and looking at this process.
Anyone else? Okay, Mrs. Ford.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. McClendon.
Yes.
Mr. Perez.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. All right, so that brings us to our final amended section here. Item 1 would be acceptance of Dr. Johnson's resignation. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Mrs. Robinson.
It is difficult to say anything that I'd like to say without getting emotional. And the good news is I know that the rest of you will operate the same way. So, Dr. Johnson, when I ran for the school board in 2016, my desire was to join this board and make a difference that would massively impact this community. And all I wanted for my children and the children of District 4, and of course the rest of Hamilton County, was to see our school system become the place that every parent could be excited about sending their kids to. I hoped for every parent to be excited about the zone school that their child was zoned for every parent and every student to feel that they had options and that their kids were going to be successful from the education that they were receiving. And in 2016, that was a really big vision because it didn't feel that way here in Hamilton County, at least from as long as I've been here for 14 years. Even before I had children, I couldn't wrap my head around why the narrative around Hamilton County schools was so poor. And I guess then it was Hamilton County Department of Education. But your leadership made that vision come true. And I know that there are other board members here tonight that had that same vision and that same desire. And so I want to tell you thank you for making the last 4 years of my life on this board not only worth every single second, but making the job of being a school board member and a leader in this community, frankly, really damn easy. No, it wasn't easy every second, but man, you made life on this board so much easier than what it could have been. And I thank you so much for every second and every breath that you've given this school system. Thank you to your wife for standing beside you because I know that was so hard. And thank you to your children too, because you have sacrificed so much time and energy and given to us and to our community in a way that most people will never give back. Even if they were to run for office or run an organization, they will never experience the level of leadership that you have, and I'm so grateful to you. I did want to also list out some of the ways that you've impacted District 4. We talk all the time, big picture, about Hamilton County as a whole, but District 4 is a really special district, and it's not just because it's my district. I have, really, if you count every single one of them, I think I have like 16 or 17 schools in my district. So there's a lot of students in District 4. And in the past, I would argue that District 4 has been overlooked, and that the level of leadership that you've brought to this school district, your leadership team, the teachers, the principals in our schools, the staff, have been exceptional, and District 4 has benefited from it. So I won't remember every single thing that you did, because you've done great things, and unfortunately you only gave me 48 hours to come up with this list. I do have 31 more days, you're right. But I'm gonna go ahead and say this now, because he's not.
You can say something for the last.
But he won't be here because this is his last board meeting.
You can call one. I'm just saying, go ahead, girl. Go ahead.
Well, if you're not going to say anything, that's okay. But I'm using this as my opportunity to publicly, give him accolades. So, first, I want to thank you for bringing the Howard High School football field to life. The beautiful football field and the beautiful facilities that Howard High School has is top notch, and it's beautiful. And District 4 fought for that for a very long time, specifically the alumni of Howard High School. And I know that they thank you, and I thank you. The Future Ready Institutes at Howard High School has put Howard High School at the top of the list of a great place to be and a great school to attend. Howard Connect Academy, by far the most innovative middle school you've ever seen in your entire life. It's where I want my children to go to middle school. I'm praying that my upcoming fourth grader will follow me and take a tour with me and say, yes, Mom, I will go there. So, or I might just force them to, who knows. The Welcome Academy for our Latino students, not only at Howard High School, but also throughout the district. It's out-of-the-box, innovative approach. You've accelerated the literacy and the math scores of District 4 students. District 4 has always been seen as one of the lowest performing areas of Hamilton County and some of the lowest performing schools. The students in my district have received top-notch education, and parents for the last 4 years have shared that, the recognition of that, and shared their just thrill of being able to send their children to their zone school with me. And I'm just so proud of that. Even opening up more magnet seats at CSAS through building CSLA. CSAS is a District 4 school. That is huge. More options for more families. The partnership with our state and the partnership district, the relationship that you built, the negotiation skills that you use to build that contract and that relationship with our state partners will forever change this district. And I'm so grateful for that. The Garber School, the construction school that's coming along, that's in my district, and I get to sing the praises of that. The Future Ready Institutes, not only throughout the entire county, but in District 4. But probably most importantly, your ability to recognize leaders and placing great, awesome leaders in District 4 schools. I have seen more families opt in to District 4 schools than I think. The attendance level of students in District 4 schools is higher than it's ever been. And probably the most important thing that I hear from teachers and leaders in District 4 is that you have changed the culture of Hamilton County schools. People want to work in Hamilton County schools. And I think that if there is nothing greater as a CEO to walk away with, is to know that you created a culture that is going to live way beyond you. You've created a legacy, and you truly have played the infinite game. And I thank you.
Mr. Perez.
Thank you. As I said, this is the moment of really giving thanks to you. I am the newest school board member. By next school board meeting, no longer, probably. And for me, it's an honor to watch your leadership and see your capacity. I mentioned even tonight, a good leader doesn't speak about themselves and what they've done. They speak about their team. And I've seen that from day one. It's the team that has surrounded you. It's the people that you have around you. And I have said that in the last also 48 hours or whatever it's been. We have an incredible team. And I said to you, we hire the best we can. And there's no doubt that by hiring the best we can, people will reach out to them and give them opportunities. And my hope is always to hire beyond this the best we can, and to prepare them for that next opportunity in hope that the door will be wider. And that is my hope and my prayer for you. And I sent this to you by email, but I will say it here, going back to one of my old lives. The Lord bless you and keep you, and the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. And the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Dr. Johnson, you've impacted this community. I'm sure you will continue to impact it. I'm sure you will continue to serve in many ways. I only bless you as you move on, and thank you for the work that you've done. And I look forward to seeing what's next in your life and what happens. And I thank you also for giving us such an incredible vision and team to continue to work with. So, thank you.
Mrs. Jones.
Dr. Johnson, I sit here and I now realize that along with Rhonda, I'm probably one of the senior members of the board. Steve left us. And I have been a member of this board. You're my third superintendent. I guess fourth if you count the one when I was in high school here. But I remember us beginning the process for selecting a superintendent. And I remember how tedious the task was. And I remember us, Scott, sending us all of these emails with these resumes and portfolios. And I'm going to say this because Dr. Johnson knows this. This is no secret. I was vying for Dr. Kelly because he was homegrown, and I just felt like it was a representation of being an accepted prophet in your hometown, right? You worked your way up. Nevertheless, Dr. Johnson was always my second choice because
it's encouraging, Carissa.
I told you this at Starbucks in 2017. Like, this ain't nothing new. But he was always my second choice because Dr. Johnson was impressive on paper. When I saw his resume, I was like, how old is this? I mean, like, he's done a lot in a short, I mean, I was just like, wow. Not knowing that he was, at that time, you were 35, 34? He was young. Like, I didn't know that at the time. I just saw his resume and was like, whoa.
I'm 104 now.
Right. It does it to you here, right? But nevertheless, he was impressive on paper. And then we did the first Zoom or Skype interview. And he was impressive via Skype. And so I kept saying, ooh, I don't know, he's giving Dr. Kelly, for me, he's giving Dr. Kelly a run for his money. And I went home and actually told my husband that, like, whoever this Johnson guy is tough. And then I remember us having the face-to-face interviews, and I remember you sitting right here in front of us. And I remember coming in, and it was like this projector up, and it was like this presentation was up, and I was like, who got this presentation? Who is this? And it was Dr. Johnson. And it had the We Are Hamilton at the bottom, and he handed us these notebooks, and it had We Are Hamilton in his first 100-day plan. And I mean, he walked in owning it. And here we are 4 years later, and We Are Hamilton. And along with being We Are Hamilton, we expect excellence. And I always add in there because we are excellent. And I remember sitting face to face with him one-on-one when he accepted the job, and we met at Starbucks by the mall. And I told him he was my second choice. That's always been our inside joke. But I also told you that as long as you do what is right for children, that I would always support you and have your back. That, looking back 4 years from now, I am grateful that you made me keep my promise. Because for 4 years, you have done what was right for children in Hamilton County, not just a child or a certain population. You did what was right for children.
And in doing right, what was right for children, everyone in Hamilton County benefited. I bet if we look across our economic mobility here in Hamilton County, we're probably in a better place because our district was improving, and people will move to places when schools are good. That's just what happens. I mean, look at the houses popping up around here. So I'm saying all that to say that I am going to miss you being our fearless learner, leader, learner. You know, he always says that he's learning right along with us as he leads. But I am excited for whatever journey that you're about to embark upon, because it would be selfish of me and any of us, and none of us are thinking this, to not encourage you to continue to learn and lead in whatever capacity you have been called to do. And I will close with this. What he said to us in his Skype interview was that education was his calling. It was his ministry. And he felt like in obtaining this job, if given the opportunity, that he could do ministry. And I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that that is what has happened here. And if you are a spiritual being like myself, I believe, and you probably believe too, that when God calls you into a ministry, it's not always a lifetime commitment in certain areas. And so I believe that his ministry for us in Hamilton County Schools is up, and that you're being called to do something else. And I am excited to see what that is about. And I want to go back really quickly. When Dr. Johnson interviewed with us face to face, we did not know this either. And he talked about this in his letter, his resignation letter. But Dr. Johnson came in here and owned Hamilton County Schools and all that he could do for us in the midst of a tremendous loss in his life. But what we have saw from him that day until today, and I'm sure we'll continue to see this, is Mrs. Johnson was an amazing mama. Because you don't get stock like this if you don't have something good pouring into it. His dad is an amazing man. He's such a sweet man. But you have to know that mamas, and I'm a mama now to a little boy, so they play a special place in your heart. And so I thank you for coming to us and sacrificing your life at such a precious time to be as impactful as you have been. We are all the better for it. I thank you for your team that you have placed to work alongside you. You all have done an amazing job and are doing an amazing job working beside Dr. Johnson. The morale is at an all-time high. Our students are excited about learning. The community is majority of the community trust us, and that they're continuing to build that trust. And that is because we have come together as Hamilton County Schools and are on a trajectory to do amazing things. We were the fastest improving. We will continue to be working to be the best, if not the best, in the state of Tennessee, and that's all because we have this foundation. So I just want to say thank you, Dr. Johnson. And I want to say to our staff and to our executive cabinet and leadership, the momentum is set. We believe in you all. Keep it going. If not, he'll probably come back and get you because he'll be like, y'all let all my 4 years of work go in vain. But I am very proud to sit on this board, and it has made these last 7.5 years, the last 4 have made the whole 7.5 worth it, because I have seen a true change in our schools and on this board and in this district, whether we always agree or not.
Mrs. Thurman.
Well, Dr. Johnson, I know you're waiting on this. I just want to say that I appreciate the fact that you always answer my phone calls, even though you have caller ID. I do appreciate that. You always know who it is, and you answer anyway. I do want to say that I appreciate that, and I also appreciate a lot of our conversations. Some of them have been heated at times. Some of them have been eye-opening, both for you and me sometimes. But I've always been frank with you, always, and I expected you to be that way with me. And so for that, I am thankful. But one of the things that, and I also know that I'm always the last board member you call when you have something to say that you don't want anybody to know, because you'll say, now, Rhonda, I'm telling you this, and I'm going to put out a statement, and I'd appreciate you keeping it quiet for a while. And I no sooner get off the phone with him than somebody's texting me, Rhonda, it just came out on Twitter that Dr. Johnson, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I just hang up the phone. So I always know I'm your last call. I guess you don't want to hear what I have to say, or it doesn't really make a lot of difference, whatever, but that's okay. But I do appreciate the fact when you came here that what you were just appalled that Selkirk didn't have a football field, and we immediately got to work on it. We're going to get to play our first football game there this year. And so I'm inviting you, even though you're not going to be the superintendent, to please come to their opening game on the field. And I do expect to have a flagpole up by then too, by the way. That's that was the thing that didn't get done. So put that in your pipe right there and smoke it, and you make sure it gets done. But anyway, but like I say, I do appreciate just a lot of the things that you have done. I appreciate, like I say, the fact that you never took anything personal. I never took anything personal. I do hate the fact I never took you to eat. All these people taking you places to eat. I never took you anywhere to eat.
I've been waiting.
I hate it.
You got 30 days.
No, well, it probably won't happen, but that's okay. So go ahead and buy your own dinner. It's probably not going to happen. But I don't even take my own husband to dinner. But anyway, I do appreciate a lot of the things that have happened to the school system. I have seen some things that have gone very well, and I do appreciate that. But I hate that you're leaving. I hate that you're leaving right here, especially with the school starting, but that's the way it is. And we will move on, and we will carry on and build on from where we are. But I do appreciate, like I say, the fact that we've always been able to. I know when you go to superintendent meetings, they say, "Oh my God, you're on that board with Rhonda Thurman." They do. I know they do, don't they? Yeah. And you
know what I say to them? Rhonda and I have a great relationship. Y'all just don't understand.
That's right. They just don't understand. That's right. But anyway, I appreciate it, and Godspeed, whatever you decide to do.
Mr. McClendon.
I kind of have a unique perception, me and Ms. Hill. My first vote on this board was Future Ready 2023. And I remember, and I think Jenny as well, me and her kind of kicking our feet because we were trying to say, what are we doing here? We don't have time to sit here and digest. We got elected. We just got sworn in. And basically, Dr. Johnson said, just believe in it, and we're going to do it. And we are on pace to do it, and we have done extraordinary things, and it's because of your leadership. One thing that I guess more or less I struggle with this on a personal level, because as someone that is younger and starting career, I've looked at you as what type of leader do I want to be, and you embody that, and I respect you immensely for what you've done for the school system, being a public school product out of our school system. I've often said, and a lover of Chattanooga, that this city is one puzzle piece away from being great, and it's our education system. And that puzzle piece, it might not be complete, or we might be trying to wiggle in, to that missing spot, but it's getting there. And that's because of you and the team that you've put around you. It just always, the board gets updates constantly. And I thought it was fitting today. I was on a Zoom call with the worldwide leader of education technology at Apple. And I said Hamilton County, and she's like, your EdConnect program. And it just kind of put into focus of what we have accomplished. We accomplished that in a pandemic. And we've seen, what we've done with being a top five, or a level 5 school district. So I just want to say thank you to your family, to Candy, to Brian Jr., your daughter, for giving up their time with you to be a servant for this county. I know how much time I give up to do this, and I can't imagine how much time you've given up. So I hope you'll enjoy time with your family, enjoy the baseball field, and to me, to whoever takes this job, I'm going into this like I've had Coach Saban and whoever has to follow up has a high bar, because we do expect excellence as a board, and I think that needs to be our focus moving forward, because that's the standard you have set. Thank you.
Mrs. Hill?
Thank you, Chair. I still don't really get the football references.
That's Alabama, Gina. That's Alabama.
It is football, right? But I know this because I've lived it. Brian, you can't see his face. Lean back, Joe.
Sorry.
How about that? Even better.
You are uniquely gifted. You are uniquely gifted by our Father God in a way that few in a generation are. I believe that. And I am thankful that we are part of your story. And I'm thrilled for you for whatever's next. And I hate it that you're going. I've said it many times. I've said it here tonight. Before you were here, we didn't know what the heck excellence was. Our trophies were tarnished and dusty. And I pray that this board will maintain healthy habits and will do our work with fidelity, and that we will hold ourselves accountable, and that we will pursue excellence, even when it's hard, because you've shown us that hard things are possible. And this work that has been accomplished over the last 4 years did not come because we got lucky. There was no magic. There was process and intentionality. And something I want to point out that I think is especially important that you have accomplished is you have equipped and supported our teachers to help them do their jobs in the midst of a changing industry. Our teachers made such progress in terms of the grading from the state to become majority highly effective teachers with the exact same group of staff for the most part. And that changes life for every kid in every classroom. And I thank you for that. I'm going to miss you. And I'm glad you're staying in Chattanooga. You better stay in Chattanooga. And I look forward to working with you in many other capacities in the future.
Mr. Smith?
When you gonna get them buses moved, Big Daddy?
August 18th.
I don't.
How is that not complete at this point?
It's over.
On the issue that says their stuff?
I think there's already a plan. It just should talk to you about it. So,
Yeah, sure. That's an easy answer.
I don't have to come back to answer that again.
Sometimes it's we like to mask our feelings. So I just did, probably. Dr. Johnson, I don't think you've ever been given the credit in this county that you deserve. I just don't think you have. You haven't. And I know that 4 years ago, man, you inherited a mess, and you did. You just did. And the progress that's been made, and I think what's most astounding to me, and the older I get, I get some more melancholy. Maybe that's the word I get. And one of my peers up here called me an old man this week. I won't mention who. But she's right. And but the reality is we're all old men. All of us. Because this ain't home. This ain't home. for none of us. Ain't even home for you, young Tucker. It's not. We're just passing through. We're just passing through. And we hadn't always agreed, Dr. Johnson, and we talk, and I think what's been most impressive about you is that over the years, man, I've worked with so many kids, and then you get disappointments, and they just don't turn out the way maybe you'd hoped, and you pour in, and it just doesn't turn out the way you'd hoped. But what I've learned is, man, I'm not responsible for the outcome. I'm just not. But I am responsible to show up. And so I guess if I could say anything about you and Candy Johnson, is y'all just showed up. You just showed up. And man, anytime I had a need, and whether it was one family or a few kids, and I called you, and y'all just showed up. Y'all just showed up. And Hamilton County, even my peers here on this board don't know about all those things. And I guess when it's all said and done, that I hope somebody will say that, well, old Joe, he was just a good man. He was just a good man. And you've been a good man. And this school system is so much better off than we were 4 years ago. And you understand. You understand that we don't keep what we have unless we give it away. You understand that. So we're going to miss you. I hope that you and Candy and your family will choose to stay in this community, because this community needs you. And what I ask that you guys are and can continue to be. And I just, not just on a professional level, but on a personal level, I just thank you for somehow God's seeing fit that you just passed through this old man's life. God bless you, brother.
Well, he already knows what I think about him. And, I think back to 2016, and it is disheartening to for anybody, for all of us, in whatever walk of life that we're in, to be criticized for the job that we do, or for what people perceive that we're about or not about, and that's fine. That's part of it. That's part of it. And when I decided to get involved with this, I really believed that needed some folks to lean into adversity, tough times, and what I've noticed as a coach of a long time is that you learn a lot about people when it's tough, and really you learn more about them when it's tough, because when it's tough, they either lean in or they try to find somewhere to hide, wherever that is. However they can I just got to get away from this because it's tough. And when I met with Brian, we talked a lot about that, about the challenges that existed here. And like many of you, this is my hometown. So, but I had disengaged for a while because I didn't believe anymore, and I was ready to believe, and I was ready to partner, and I was ready to work. And what I always enjoyed about Dr. Johnson was that I never saw him flinch in the face of tough. And that says so much about somebody. one of my favorite stories in Scripture, and you guys are going, I can't believe you're going, that's so well known, but most people don't know this. You go back and look it up. When David got ready to fight Goliath, I'm telling you, most people don't recognize this. Goliath's ready for battle. David had already selected his stones and his weapon. And Scripture says that after Goliath had tried to intimidate David with words and presenting himself as a much larger opponent, that he stepped towards David. Does anybody know what David did when Goliath stepped towards him? David ran to meet him. Guys, that's a small percentage of people. There was no hesitation. There was no flinch. There was no, hey, it might be time to figure out a better vantage point. He just took off. Dead sprint. And you guys are going to say, well, you're romanticizing that. I don't know. You guys tell me of a time where you've seen the man that's led for the past 4 years flinch. I hadn't seen it. The one thing he said to me the night of his interview that Caritza spoke of earlier, we finished, and absolutely impressive in-person interview, and he hung around for a little bit, you know, to chit-chat with folks. And Candy was working the room. She was working the room.
She's the extrovert. We're a team.
No, it's good. It's good. It's good. I'm just giving her a hard time. But you know, Brian started to mingle and talk, and he came up to me, and all he said was, I want to serve. That's what he said. And that's all I needed. That's all I needed. Because leadership, contrary to what folks might believe, it's not the title on the door. It's not the diploma or the plaque on the wall. It's just not. Leadership, those credentials are written on the hearts of who you lead. What I love about a true servant leader is when you walk in the room, you don't have to guess who the leader is. The leader gets there before everybody else. The leader leaves long after everybody's gone. The leader works exponentially harder than anybody else, so much so that people don't want that job. And whatever the leader says, you can take it to the bank. That's a true leader. And he has exemplified all of that. Can't tell you how many times I've gotten a text message at 12:30 at night and an email at 4 in the morning. Because this job it's a meat grinder. If you're going to do it well and you're going to pursue excellence, it's not for everybody. And it's a very unique position, and he's done it well. Candy, thank you. I know how frustrated my wife gets when I come home after a long board meeting and I'm still on the phone, or I've got to do this or do that, and my life engaged with the school system is not even a drop in the bucket compared to what his day and his weeks and his months and years have been. I will end with, leaders got to lead, don't they? They got to lead. Because it's tough. I'd love to take off the robe of responsibility right now. I'd love to. But we don't get to, guys. Leaders got to lead. So I'm not done. We'll get together again, and we do have 31 days, and I know I am. I'm going to be a part of whoever wants to, but we're going to celebrate your time here. We will not let it go unrecognized. We're going to celebrate. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy, your effort. Thank you for your passion for seeing families and children gain opportunities that they might not have otherwise had. And I'm thankful that the Lord has allowed us to be a part of the time that you've been here and the blessing that's come. And I look forward to, as has been said earlier, the foundation that you've laid. And it's more than a foundation. It's much more there. And I'm looking forward to how your influence impacts a decade from now. So, thank you. All right, Mrs. Ford.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Said yes. Mrs. Jones.
Yes,
Mr.
unfortunately.
Yes.
Mr. Perez.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
I know this is a formality, so no.
Rhonda rubbing off on you.
I almost
Yeah.
did that, and I thought, no, everybody will say, oh, look at her.
Consistency.
Yeah, well, tonight it'll be my son has gotten into watching some of these school board meetings, and Ron, you'll get a kick out of this. He said he pretended like, a couple months ago we were having a school board meeting, and when I got home, and he said, "I'm Rhonda Thurman." No.
Atta baby.
Out of the mouth of babes, right? So it'll be you tonight.
Never
Joe Wingate.
conform. Be your own person. Don't do things just so everybody smiles and thinks you're cute and pretty.
That's right. That's
do
right.
what's right. That's it.
That's exactly right. So I just want to say thank you all for allowing me to serve. It has absolutely been the honor of my life professionally to serve as superintendent. The honor of my life personally is to be a husband and a father, and my faith is extremely important to me. Thank the teachers and the staff. I thank the teachers and the staff in this district for the work that they do every single day. It does not go unnoticed. This is a team that is an exceptional team that I've been fortunate enough to serve alongside. I thank the leaders of this district at the school level. I thank the senior leaders of this district that have put up with so much to support me. I thank you for putting up with me. All of you have gotten used to putting up with me, and I thank you for dealing with my quirks. I don't have a lot of comments. I'll end by saying this. I in my resignation letter, I shared about my mother. You all know very well my mother. I was a mama's boy, but I had an exceptional father as well, have an exceptional father as well, who was in the Navy. And he taught me how to take showers. So my son will say, "You already had the shower?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I learned how to take showers by somebody that was in the Navy. So you learn how to, you get in and you get out." But my father always taught me that if you have an opportunity to stay over somebody's house, if somebody's kind enough to allow you to stay in their home and you sleep in their bed, when you get up the next morning, you don't just remake the bed, but you find something else to do within the room. You want them to know that you were there and that you made a difference during the time that you were there. So I thank the community for allowing me to reside in the superintendency. My hope is that I have not just made the bed, but that I've made it a little bit better, such that as you look towards the days ahead, you'll see that a difference has been made. I said that was my last thing, but I will end with this. I see somebody in the very back, Tammy Baxter, who started with me way back when and got me out to the Saudi Daisy Band reveal, and it means a ton that you're here tonight back in the back, and you don't even have a kid anymore in our system, but you've had kids that have gone through the system, so I appreciate you being here. But thank you all for being in the fight with me. I could share so many stories. I remember the first two battles, I won't call them fights, that we went after was Signal Mountain secession. I don't know if y'all remember that.
No, not at all.
And the State Department and some of our highest performing schools we were battling to keep. And some of our lowest performing schools we're battling to keep. And so we wanted to keep everybody. And that's really the truth of Hamilton County Schools. We want to keep and serve everybody. So thank you for allowing me to serve. And I look forward to seeing you out in the community. If any of you know how to fish or golf, let me know, because I'm not good at either one of those. But it's been my pleasure. And if you don't mind, I'll step out now, because you all need to have me out of the room as you have conversation about the selection of your incoming interim and next superintendent at that search. Thank you.
No.
Oh, she has a heart. She has a heart. I also have a spine. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. That's most important. Right.
All right, I'm going to wait just a minute for Mr. Smith. That's all right.
There ain't no windows back there. Well, then, somebody will see him on Facebook. There you go.
Oh. All right, so as we get to this item here, appointment of interim director, I just want to remind you all of a couple things, 2 or 3 things. One, we placed this item here as a placeholder because we can choose to do various things here tonight. So had it there as an action item so that it could be an action item if needed, but also as, again, a placeholder for our discussion. So again, I want to say a couple things to that. Number one, and I think you all received an email from Mr. Bennett regarding board policy 5.801. And in that board policy, it states that the interim shall not be a candidate for the position of superintendent. That, again, that individual would be a placeholder. Now, the board can make an exception to that, which did happen in 2015. But again, according to board policy, that's not how we would operate. I also want to say, I've been a big proponent of, as I've sat here for 5 years, gosh, you hear a lot of misinformation. You get to hear it sometimes when delegations speak. You get to hear it sometimes when you tune into news. You get to hear it sometimes out on the street. And I get it when you're not intimately involved sometimes with everyday workings. You don't always know. It's just part of it. But one thing I will say is that there is no succession plan. There's no plan. There's an organizational flow chart to this organization, and there is process and policy that is developed and used by this board. So I want to make sure that that's clear to everybody. And I would like to take this time to make a recommendation to you guys. My recommendation to the board as a whole as to how we go about the selection of an interim would be to determine which internal personnel, which individuals in our system have interest in serving in the interim role by having any and all of those individuals submit their interest via email to Ms. Sherry Ford by 8 a.m. this coming Monday. Ms. Ford would then take that list of individuals who have communicated to Ms. Ford that they understand that by serving in that role, they cannot be considered as a candidate, but they wish to serve in the interim role. She would then distribute that to the board as a whole for our consideration. We would then convene in a special called meeting on Tuesday to vote in an interim and then proceed and go about the work of finding our next leader. It is my opinion that we need to get about the work of finding our next leader. So I pose that as a recommendation. If someone wants to make a motion to that end, that's fine. If not, I'm here to hear all other recommendations and discussions. Mr. McClendon.
I'll make a motion to that suggestion.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second.
I'd like to make a comment.
All right, hang on one
Discussion.
second.
Okay.
So I believe, I don't know, it was either Ms. Jones or Mr. Perez. Which one? Go ahead, Mrs. Jones. No, I mean,
No.
that wants to speak.
I had a question. Yeah. So, if I'm understanding your recommendation, then whomever is interested would the interest, is that a letter? Is that what is the format for that?
They can
Is it a letter
simply
interest?
submit. They can simply submit
Or just
by
an email?
No, it doesn't have to be a formal letter.
Okay, I just was trying to
have it. I mean, they're already internal candidates. It'll be clearly recognizable who they are by their email and by their signature. That, hey, I have interest in serving in the interim role.
Okay, I just was asking because, just to make sure that people understand if that's going to be the case, how they would do that. Second to that is any individual that would do that, understanding that, of course, it's not for the permanent superintendency. If whatever position they are in, what happens there? Do they take a leave of, if they're elected, would they take a leave of absence from that position? Does their position become, what happens there? So say if,
Go ahead,
say if it was, I'm just gonna say if it was a principal or whomever, if they wanted to do it and then that was who selected, who becomes principal of Mosley High School?
Well, it would depend heavily on who we're talking about. So if, for example, if it were a principal, hypothetically,
Mhm.
a principal becomes the director of schools, then the new director of schools has all the authority of the director. He or she could then appoint a new principal to that position. Now, what becomes difficult is when that interim is up, there's no position
For that principal to go back to.
go back to. And
Okay.
that does happen. On the other hand, if you're looking at someone who is maybe in executive leadership, they just take on additional roles, and maybe they could roll back into their current position.
Okay.
Or it depends on who you're talking about, quite frankly.
Okay, no, I think I was thinking more so outside of executive cabinet or in central office or something of that. I was thinking more if there was somebody outside of, they had a little more, yeah.
So, I mean, hypothetically, if you had a principal who wanted an interest, and if this board hypothetically had an interest so that you could preserve the current leadership team intact, then you could choose to do that. But there has to be a principal at that school, right? And so your new director or superintendent would backfill that position. But because you don't know how long the interim's going to last, there's no guarantee that your interim can roll back into that school-based position.
Okay.
Mr. Perez.
All right, so I have questions, right, and maybe again to the public. I think like all of us, or I assume like all of us, found out about this change on Tuesday morning, right? So there's no assumption that anything's been in the works on our behalf for a long time, and today's Thursday, so to me it's very quick. Regarding the role of the interim, I heard you say, and I just want to be clear on this, the interim functions fully as the director of schools.
Yes, sir.
For as long as that role may take.
That's correct.
Correct? Okay. The interim, are there any limits to the decisions that the interim can make from an operational or no?
Sir. The
Fully
interim,
functional as the
The only difference between an interim superintendent or director and a permanent one is that a permanent one operates under a contract for up to 4 years.
4 years.
And an interim is month to month. That is literally the only distinction.
The timeline, can I ask those who were present how long the search took the previous time? I mean, I was present on the outside.
Yeah, it was too long, but we also we began that search. You guys helped me. Don't let me be wrong on this, but we began that search in the fall, late fall, and then we had the Woodmore bus accident. And I'm not certain if that put us 30. I know it was at least a month behind, but I'm not sure if it was. It may have been 60 days behind.
2 months.
So we did not complete that search until obviously into the summer months. So it was an extraordinary long search. It should not have. Typically, it would not have been that.
Because that's one of the questions I have is, are we assuming, and the thing is, so one of the comments I've seen a lot is, those are hard shoes to fill, and one of the comments I made is, we're retiring those shoes, in my opinion. They were great shoes, but I want to make sure that whoever, either on an interim basis, we establish, understands that they will have our full board support during that period of time. But it's hard to know what that period of time is, right? Like, I don't necessarily want a 1 month interim coming and changing a whole bunch of things, and then, now we're going back. And so the continuation is important of the work that we're doing, but I also want to respect the role that the interim is a director at that time, and we'll see that.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, if I could backfill the timeline a little bit, those of you who are here will recall that some of the time was spent identifying a search firm.
Right.
Yeah.
So while we started working with Coleman Liu in earnest after Woodmore, before Woodmore, we put out a very extensive RFP to try to find the right firm that was positioned to find the right candidate, because I think we all recognized we were looking for a unicorn. And so this board interviewed several different search firms. Some had a state-only presence, some had a national presence, and it ended up selecting Coleman Liu out of Charlotte. So I can't remember how long that process took, but I feel like that itself took about 2 or 3 months.
That's right, and Mr. Smith and I were just commenting on that, and so ideally we would have shaved, a few months off of that process if there had not been delays.
So potentially, the new superintendent that we select through whatever process we go through, which I have a million questions about that, but they're not for tonight. The new superintendent could start sometime in the fall if the process was shortened and ready to go and all that, or however long it may take for them if they have to resign for their current position or anything like that. But we could potentially start.
Conceivably, yes.
Conceivably. Another question, what evaluation process is there for an interim? And you know, we've selected somebody. How do we determine? It might be 6 months, it might be a year. How do we determine?
You mean, once they're selected, how do you determine if you're going to renew the contract?
Not renew, but how do we evaluate their progress? How do we, you know, just because they're not looking at this long-term evaluation, we're just determining for the short term, is this going along?
Yeah, I'll let Mr. Bennett speak to that too, and I know Mrs. Thurman and Mrs. Jones have been here longer and seen a little bit more, but I mean, the reality is, in my mind, that you know, your interim again is on a month-to-month contract, and at the end of the deal, our goal is to effectively and efficiently find someone, you know, and so I don't know that you get into I don't know that you get into an evaluation process.
I mean, this is, like I said, I just have questions.
We didn't, it was month to month.
How long was Dr. Kelly the interim? Was it a full
So-
year?
I think it was a full year.
It was about 9,
You remember, Mr. Bennett?
It was, I think it was like 13 months. There was 2 months where you had Dr. McDade and Dr. Kelly.
That's true. That's true.
As a stopgap, and then this board actually went through an extensive interview process to select the interim.
Yes.
And because there was community push to hire someone from outside the system to be your interim.
For the interim, okay.
So I think
No, it was
about a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, last statement I'll make, and then I'll think about your motion. But I think beyond the excellence that we achieved, and perhaps because of the excellence, everybody knows the cliche culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? We had a great strategy, but I think what has been built from my perception is an incredible culture. And culture, in my line of business studies and whatever, is usually why mergers and acquisitions don't work. It's usually like in the midst of all those clashing cultures can create tremendous tension. And in the continuation, some of the things I want to make sure, both interim and long-term, that I believe Dr. Johnson did phenomenally well was transparency, communication. You said it, I mean, 12:30 at night, 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm finding out what's happening. The reason I answered the phone right away when it rang on Tuesday morning was because if Dr. Johnson calls, he's letting me know something bad. Usually he doesn't call me right away to say, hey, let me tell you what's going on, it's great. And so that level of communication, both personally to the board, but also to the community, to me is deeply important, both in the interim, especially in the interim, and beyond, because I think we built a great culture, and then the passion and inspiration. The reason I like your proposal is I feel, I'm not sure that like Monday we're going to get some emails, Tuesday we're deciding. I'm glad it's short. I want it to be short, whatever we do, but I feel we just found out Tuesday, and choosing an interim for me tonight is stressful. The one thing I do want to point out is obviously the media is around. Everybody has opinions. We're getting phone calls and emails and texts, and that's fine. We serve the public, but I hope we can also be protective of those who are being considered in this process. I think, and I'll say this personally, I'm all for transparency. I get that I'm a public servant, and everything that we discuss is public and should be public. But we are talking about people's lives. We're talking about people's futures. We're talking about people's careers, and even we're talking about people's longings and desires and all that. And I wish we could protect them from that, unfortunately, being a very public opportunity. They put themselves out there, expose themselves to the scrutiny and attack of the public. And we as a board, like, I always feel the same. Hey, I signed up for this. Ask me if I do it again, but we'll figure that out down the road. I shouldn't have said that publicly. We'll figure that down the road. Our staff team members, they signed up to teach and educate, and we have a tendency to attack those who are there to serve. So I hope whatever we do, we as a board are protected. I think we are protective, but we remind the community to remember that these are all good people, excellent people, who deserve their opportunity to share their desires. That's it.
Mrs. Thurman.
I think that we need to wait before we do anything. District 9 right now is not represented at all. I think the District 9 is one of the largest districts in the system. And right now there's no representation for them. And I think they need to have a voice. I know at times we have put off voting for things till elections are over, until the new board is seated, because they're the ones who are going to have to work with the new superintendent. And right now we don't have a District 9 representative. And I think that the commission is supposed to vote like on August the 4th, and we still have a superintendent until August the 17th. And very ironically, Dr. Johnson's initial contract would have been up July the 17th, which is Saturday. And when we gave him the second contract, the date on it was February the 20th, 2020. And at that time, we gave him a $42,500 raise. And the last year and a half, that's been $63,750 additional we've paid him. And he got a $10,000 bonus last year in February, so that's $73,750. So we still have a superintendent, and he's been paid to do this job. So I don't know why we're in the big rush. This is very fresh to us. I think it's very wise that we wait until, like I say, if we'd had the initial contract, we wouldn't be having this conversation. He could have already told us he was leaving, and it would have been done. But as it is, like I say, I don't know why we're in a hurry. We still have time to do this, and all we need is 15 days to let the public know that we're going to vote on a superintendent, or what we're going to do, or what we need to do. So doing nothing is one of our options. And so I'm going to make the motion that we do nothing and wait until we have a new board member who can vote. I just don't think it's fair not to give an entire district an opportunity to have a voice in who the superintendent or the interim is going to be.
Is that substitute motion there,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Well,
I'm-
so let me get some clarification. Because there's a motion to start a process to name an interim. It's been seconded.
I guess
Your
it-
motion to do nothing.
As to table, I guess. I don't.
You
what
can
do
either vote no, or if your motion here is for the entire board to put this off until some later date, that's more of a motion to table.
Okay. I make a motion that we put this off till a later date till we have a representative for District 9.
Do we have a second on that?
So that's a motion to table? Is that the motion, Scott?
That's what I understood, Ms. Thurman. A motion to put this decision off.
To put this decision off until we have a representative for District 9.
All right, so
What are they telling us? I mean, what's the commission, what's their, you mentioned a date.
It's supposed to be August the 4th, I think, is the date they're supposed to vote, from what I understand.
Yeah. That scares me. Who knows what they'll do.
Well, we can have a call meeting and do it after then. I mean,
all right. we have a second to that or not? All right, so motion fails. All right, Mrs. Hill, I think you were next.
This is an interesting idea. So to make sure I understand, you're saying anyone who currently works for Hamilton County Schools would be welcome to submit their name for consideration?
Sure.
Okay. So with that, and with almost, we've got 6,000 adults in our system, I think, give or take. I think that opens us up to the possibility that we will have applicants. We could have applicants that we don't even know, like that I, as Jenny Hill, District 6, don't even know who they are. So I think I would need some consistent information from people. And perhaps that's kind of like the way that Brian brought it, if we've got somebody that wants to do this and they want to bring it, then they do that. But I'm going to need some information about that person to be able to make a decision. And I feel like within our executive staff, we have some pretty terrific candidates. And if they put their name in and say, I'm raising my hand, then I'll know their qualifications already. But something to consider as we fine tune whatever we ask them to provide by Monday. The other thing, Marco made a really important and interesting point about the fact that it's undeniable that there are political opinions and ideas flying through the air at any given moment, and that whoever puts their name in on this likely will come under scrutiny, attack, and this team has worked too hard for them to be sacrificed to the wolves in that way. So it's so crazy that Rhonda was saying, like, let's extend it, because when Marco was talking, I thought, oh my gosh, we need to do this sooner than that. If we really feel like it is in the best interest of the district to open it up to 6,000, give or take, people to say, hey, I've got what it takes, I would suggest that we actually meet on Monday instead of on Tuesday, so that the wolves have no time to sharpen their knives, but instead that we all know that if Sherry's got to have them by 8 a.m., that we get them by 8:30, because if you want to run this district as the interim, you're probably going to get it in on time or early.
Yeah.
And if not, you're not the one for us. So if we met then at 5 o'clock, knowing that it was our number one priority for Monday to read through those ideas, I would be more comfortable with this plan. Otherwise, I'm kind of concerned about the ambiguity of it and our team that we have in place.
Okay. Mrs. Robinson?
Yeah, I share similar concerns as Jenny. My primary concern is opening the position up to all 6,000 employees, and I mean this with zero disrespect, but I feel like a much narrower field, specifically from our leadership team, is the only list of candidates that I'm interested in looking at or considering for really all the reasons that Jenny has shared. And I also agree with the notion of, not motion, but notion of doing this meeting on Monday versus Tuesday to close the gap of time in which this could become a circus, and also the fact that we could not be making a more important decision. And important decisions with valid information are easy to make quickly. So that's a great point.
Mr. Chairman?
Mrs. Jones? Yes, sir.
If I may interject, perhaps maybe Mr. McClendon could amend his motion to say that an interim has to meet all the qualifications of the director of schools.
That's actually a very good point.
Which, by the way, is spelled out in your board policy 5.802. And just so we're clear, it's a professional educator's license, a master's degree in education with preference for a doctorate, 3 years of successful experience in school administration, and other qualifications as the board deems desirable. In this case, it would be, you understand you're not going to be a candidate for the superintendency.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that maybe you amend your motion to say you've got to meet the qualifications of 5.802.
Thank you for saying that. I was going to wait till everybody had a chance to speak, but point well taken, Mrs. Hill. I was as you were talking, writing down, does that narrow down just to administrative personnel? But as Mr. Bennett just pointed out, I think the criteria is even a little tighter than that. So we can, as I said earlier, we can refer to the policy. So yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
What if we, because I do not know the background of everybody on the the leadership team, but what if we don't have a candidate from the leadership team that meets all those qualifications that's willing to do the job?
Well, that's what we were saying. You could narrow it not just to administrative, but you could, leadership, but you could go administrative, and that's not going to get you into the realm of thousands of employees.
Okay.
But it would be broader than leadership team.
Okay.
Is that?
I think we've already narrowed ourselves down by policy, so anyone that applies that doesn't meet the standard is automatically disqualified. Right.
Well, if I understand what you just said, Mr. McClendon, if they don't meet the criteria under 5.802, then they're not even eligible for the board's consideration. I think maybe Ms. Ford could share the names with Ms. Murray's team. They could screen to be sure that they meet the criteria, and that way it keeps the board from being inundated with folks who maybe are facially unqualified. Let's say hypothetically, and this isn't going to happen, let's say hypothetically you get 20 applicants, and I frequently am proven wrong when I make pronouncements like this, but it's not going to happen. You're not going to get 20. And let's say you don't know 15 of them, you don't have to consider them. They're going to be your one employee, right? And so you have to have the confidence of that person, him or her. So if there's only one person whose name you recognize and you have confidence in him or her, I would say you should probably hire him or her.
Mrs. Jones?
Well, Scott, actually, I had a question about referring back to what the requirements were. So that answered that part.
Well, not yet, because there hasn't been an agreement to what the motion is.
No. I was going to ask you to refresh us on what those were, and then I was going to say, could we not look at that? So that part, what I wanted is, you got that. I just want us to make sure that we are being mindful of, in searching for this one interim employee, that the process in which we're doing that is also, we're taking into consideration the other 6,000 employees that we have. From Tuesday afternoon until I was pulling in the parking lot trying to find me somewhere to park because the news took all the parking spaces. I was on the phone, I've been on the phone with administrators, teachers, parents, paraprofessionals, everybody at the laundromat, right? But I've been on the phone with I've received a lot of calls and messages. And the one thing that people were asking of me, and especially the administrators in District 5, which I'm pretty sure is the administrators across the district, as a whole, system as a whole, I meant to say, is that they have a lot of trust and faith in their executive leadership, and they are, like I've said this earlier, but the morale is at an all-time high. And the biggest thing that they were asking of me in the calls they were making to me, and I'm pretty sure if they made them to other people, they were saying the same thing. They want consistency. They want to know that they're secure in the work that they've devoted to for the past 4.5 years. They want to know that whoever's going to be leading them understands what that looks like, supports the vision of what a strategic plan or has set forth, and that this leadership has started, and that they will be able to continue on the momentum that they are on. And so I just want us to, whatever we do, I don't want it to become a Netflix next premiere, you know, where everybody's trying to tune in and watch, because it's not a show. These are people's lives. These are children's lives and educational trajectories we're talking about here. And these are people's lives, jobs, and the legacy that this board has worked really hard to support and to implement here. And our county has worked really hard to get our schools moving where they need to go. And so whatever that looks like, let's be very mindful of making the best decision that we can. And I do understand what Rhonda was saying about the District 9 board member. I thought about that. I did think about that. But I also know that I think while it is important to make sure all districts are represented for the interim, I think it's more important that every district is represented when we're choosing the permanent superintendent. And so I'm kind of leaning on that. I was leaning on that, which is why I couldn't really support it, because I feel like who's going to sit here and begin the next journey with us is more important than who's going to help keep us middle ground moving while we're in that transition. I think we have to remember that we're in transition. And so we're just needing someone, and I don't mean like just needing, but we need someone that understands what that looks like. And it's not gonna come in, and as my grandmama say, shake the ship, and then the whole cookie crumble. That was my grandma. She used to say little stuff like that. But we don't want that, because now that I'm 40, I understand what that means. And I would hate for this cookie that we've baked that's very palatable to crumble. And so I'm asking my peers, let's just be mindful of that, so that it doesn't become a circus. Because we've lived through several circuses together, right? And I mean,
Like big top.
and I kind of like So let's just be mindful of that, because we do have a lot of children that are relying on us, and we've come so far that we do not want to mess that up for the sake of being scrutinized and for a show. Yes. And I'm not saying that people are, I'm just saying, a lot of outside forces can get involved in things and try to shake up a ship. I like our ship just playing. I don't want it to be like the Titanic.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly with you, Mrs. Jones. Mrs. Thurman?
Well, we don't have to hire an interim. That's nowhere written in law. There's no policy that says we have to do that. It doesn't say we have to hire a search firm. It doesn't say we have to do any of that. Famous words of Gary Waters, with 5 votes, we can make the front door the back door. We can do anything we want to do. So I just want everybody to understand that there is no written that you have to do anything. We can accept, like I say, the policy for the qualification for the superintendent. That's a different animal. But as far as everything else, there's no process that you have to appoint this and you have to do that and you have a protocol and all that. There's nothing like that this board has to do. We do not have to hire a search firm. Like I say, we still have a superintendent. He still has to August the 17th. And people say, well, it's not a big deal for District 9. Well, you know what? There's a lot of people in District 9 that think it's a big deal. And I've heard from some of them, it's a big deal. It may not be. How would you like it if somebody said, Tiffany, you can't vote because it's not a big deal? Your district doesn't need to be represented. Not a big deal. I wouldn't do that to people in District 1, say, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to show up to vote because it's not a big deal. It's a big deal. And I don't like not having people represented. That's a large part of Hamilton County. And so they need a voice. And I just can't believe the people on this board think it's just not important. I'm sorry, but like I say, they deserve to be heard just like everyone else, just like the people in my district, the district people in your district. I say there's no hurry to do this. I don't understand why the big hurry. We just heard about this Tuesday. This is Thursday. And anytime you haste make waste, there's another one your grandmother probably said, and I just don't like rushing into things like this, because when this board has to rush into things, we mess it up every time. And the contract extension for one, and like I said, somebody's going to learn to listen to Grandma Thurman down here one of these days. I tell you why you don't need to do these things. You do them anyway, and then it ends up costing the taxpayers money.
What's cost the taxpayers
Well,
money?
no, I'm
Ms. Thurman?
talking about his contract extension and giving a new 4-year contract. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying
That didn't cost
his-
anybody.
well, we gave him an increase in pay.
He got a 3% increase.
Well, it doesn't make any difference. I don't care. It didn't have to be anything. That's my whole point, Joe. It doesn't really make any difference.
That don't matter. You
Like I say,
you get what
his
you pay
original
for. You get what you pay for.
his original contract would have been up July the 17th. And if we were still on that, we wouldn't be having this discussion. We would have already been looking for a superintendent if he wanted to leave.
Well,
But anyway,
we couldn't do that. We've already gone over
okay, I
that numerous
understand. Like I
times.
said, but we still have a superintendent, and he's been paid through August the 17th. And so I just don't know why we can't wait and give representation to District 9. Maybe you'll hear from the people from District 9. I hope they blow your phone up.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Please pardon the interruption. I want to be careful I don't accidentally mislead the board. Your policy says professional educator's license, master's degree in education, 3 years of successful experience in school administration. I need to mention that state law only requires a bachelor's degree. And this board has for many, many, many years said that under certain circumstances you might consider someone with another background. And so I think under the circumstances, since the original motion is still on the floor, I think it might be more appropriate to narrow the qualifications to say that applicants must have experience as an administrator in Hamilton County Schools. That still narrows it a good bit, but it opens up the fact that you have lots of administrators who are not simply who are not educators. There we go. That's how we can say that.
All right, so go ahead, Mrs. Robinson.
I was just going to simply state that I still feel like the most appropriate person is going to come from the leadership team, and I agree with you on the narrowing, but do feel strongly that I don't want a huge influx of resumes that are going to be from people that have not been a part of the leadership team. So I'm just putting that out there as my preference. That's all. It does not have to be voted on that way, but just putting that out there.
Mr. McClendon.
I wasn't going to speak on this, but I will, about District 9's representation. I think it is important. I don't think I've heard anyone up here say it's not important. But I was elected by the people of District 8 to make sure this school system runs smoothly. And to go into a school system or a school year, the start of a school year, I think August 17th is the 5th day of school, and make our staff, our teachers, our students, our parents kind of wait in the balance to what we're going to do, just leaves me a little uneasy on that for the interim. I think we'll have more discussion on the more important question, who's going to lead this district long term, and we will have representation for that conversation started August 4th, August 5th. So with that, I guess I need to amend my motion. You'll have to help me go through this because we've changed about 3 times now. So it needs to be that all applicants need to submit a letter of intent or interest to Ms. Ford, limiting it to people that have served in leadership or administrative roles in Hamilton County Schools. And it needs to be to Ms. Ford by 8 a.m. on Monday. I don't know the date, but by Monday, this coming Monday.
That's the 19th.
By July 19th.
So repeat that one more time.
Yep. And we will have a special called meeting on Monday at 5:30.
Is it gonna be
Let
Monday?
me check my phone pal.
Is it for sure Monday or Tuesday? Monday or Tuesday?
Monday.
So all of that's in the same motion?
Yeah.
Okay, so repeat that.
Okay.
'Cause I got.
Well, let them record it, and then we'll have it read back to us so that we're clear.
Scott, can you read that back?
So the first part of your original motion was to accept the applicants, right?
Yes.
To email me. Okay,
Yes.
so all applicants will submit a letter of intent by 8 a.m. Monday morning, July 19th, to me by email.
Mhm.
And that's all I have.
And you have to have the administrative experience
Oh.
to do this.
Yeah.
Administrative experience at Hamilton County Schools.
Why can't they submit it by 8
Because we want,
Why
yeah,
can't
may-
we
wait, can I add one point? So, the Monday thought was that if they submit on Monday, we get them on like they become public on Monday morning at 8:30, the same time that we get them, the public gets them. And
then there's just
and
an hour
we are
difference.
limiting
Okay.
circus. We are caging wolves.
Or trying to. They are
So, I
really
mean,
doing
I
that.
would ask that if you submit that, you keep it to yourself, and that Sherry, you keep those completely confidential until 8:30 when you send them to the board.
Okay, but wait a minute, because I've got to go to Ms. Murray first to make sure they meet the qualifications.
I think they can self-identify if they meet the qualifications.
So can I just one caveat, because I think it could help, is are we going to do an internal publishing of this? Because there's people that could be interested in this position that are not probably watching this, or they probably are, but making sure other people are aware that it's open.
The information gets out to
Yes.
those people who may be interested.
Yeah.
I don't see a reason why we couldn't.
This feels like theater to me.
Doesn't have to be.
You can't just send it out tonight?
Well, that's what I'm saying, just making sure it gets out.
How do you say nasty, Lord?
Jenny,
You talk?
No, he said it didn't have to be, and I was just thinking about that and thinking about things. Sometimes I'm thinking.
Mr. Smith.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Jeannie. It seems like there's a lot of drama around trying to name or not name an interim. I guess one thing I would be concerned about, Scott, correct me, because I could really be wrong, but I think that policy states as the board desires, because it talks about things like professional license and all that thing, all those things that are required to be in that role, and then it goes on to say, or as the board desires.
Are you talking about the qualifications for
Yes.
superintendent? It's those three things and such other qualifications as the board deems desirable. So it's
That and more.
It's which is why I had made the suggestion that we dial back that restriction a bit
For interim.
and apply it to administrators.
So, again, help me, forgive me.
Yes, sir.
But, so it might mean even people on our leadership team that would be interested that don't have that professional license, would they automatically be eliminated?
No, sir. No,
Okay.
not the way that Mr. McClendon has amended his motion.
Okay.
And by the way, Mr. Chairman, we don't have who the second is on that. I don't know if it was Mr. Smith or Mr. Perez. But does the second accept that revision?
I'm the one that seconded it, and I would, but I do want to add the caveat, because I think Rhonda makes a good argument about District 9. I'm gonna second that motion. But that's a good argument about District 9. But I just think, man, we need to move. We need to move quickly, carefully, and continue to build on the momentum that we have. And my goodness, I just remember how long it took the last time, and we eventually, no question, landed on the right guy. But just a lot of concerns.
So has the
So he's saying-
motion been seconded?
It has been.
Yeah.
That's what I heard from
That's what I
Mr.
heard,
Smith.
okay. I'm just trying to keep up.
All right. Are we ready for a vote?
Is this the table vote? What vote is this?
This is the.
It's
this is-
Tucker's vote.
This is Mr. McClendon's motion, that the board will receive applicants for the position of interim director of schools who will not be a candidate for the permanent position. Applicants must have administrative experience in Hamilton County Schools, must get their application into Ms. Ford by email no later than 8 a.m. Monday morning. Ms. Murray's team will verify administrative experience and promptly notify the board of the appropriate candidates. There will be a special called meeting Monday afternoon.
At what time?
Monday afternoon at a time to be at 5:30 to select an interim.
All right. So I think we're ready for the vote, Mrs. Ford.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
I abstain.
Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Sermon,
No.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes.
6-1.
All right. Motion carries. That gets us to the end of our agenda. You'll see there events, announcements, just really more about the beginning of the school year. So August the 5th would be an administrative in-service. August the 6th, the same, which is also a registration date that Friday for students. The following Monday, another in-service. Tuesday in-service. The Wednesday is teacher professional development, and then that Thursday, August the 12th, will be the first full day of school. And I would say that Monday would be the next time we'll see each other, August 16th, but it'll be this coming Monday. Do we have any other events?
Say Monday or Tuesday?
No, Monday. It's Monday. Yes, it's Monday. Do we have any other events or announcements we need to make?
I just have a question.
Go ahead.
Past all this, which is, will we wait till the next board meeting, or will we have a work session or special session, or on Tuesday will we establish a session to discuss some of the process?
We can discuss some of that process on Monday evening if the board so wishes. What's that?
Monday.
Yeah, we can discuss that after the interim vote Monday if the board so wishes. And then if that doesn't happen, yes, Mr. Perez, we would need to begin to schedule a meeting earlier than our next monthly meeting.
So Mr. Wingate.
Chair, will that be at 5:30 Monday?
Correct. That's what Mr. McClendon added to his
So a
amendment.
work session after the special called to discuss the
Process
selection
for
process.
superintendent search. Yes, sir.
Can you come with?
Go ahead, Mrs. Jones.
Scott,
Yes, ma'am.
can you on Monday come with some examples of what we did the last time, or even possibly send that out before to refresh people's memories and educate those who may not have been here, so that we don't have to sit a long time on Monday to talk about that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
So documents for review.
Yeah, because I got something else to do on Monday. Tuck on my calendar. And
All right, any other events, announcements? All right, meeting adjourned.